It's monthly Mormon Mondays. It's time for the secret handshake. Tune in and reach through the veil. It's time for monthly Mormon Monday.
Welcome to another monthly Mormon Monday, or it might just be called Magic Mormon Monday. Some other MMM, just so we want to do maybe more than once a month. We might ramp it up a little bit.
Magic, I like Magic Mormon Monday. That's cool.
And we're also we pre-record some of these. Sometimes we go live. Very rarely do we ever do them on an actual Monday, just because it doesn't usually work out that way for the title. And this one, we're actually recording on a Wednesday, and we're talking about a movie about a Saturday, and you're listening to it on a Monday. I know that might be confusing, but it's not going to be nearly as confusing as the actual plot of Saturday's Warrior, which was introduced to me as, I can't remember, we were reading something, and it came up, and it related to being the musical version of a Mormon take on Jesus Christ Superstar, which is like a musical Jesus Christian thing. And
no, this is a real thing. This is like theology for them. I don't think you know.
Well, I understand it a tiny bit more, because when I brought it up to Andreas the other night, he mentioned like one part that you have to understand is that like these Mormons move away, and I'm talking about Mormons in front of a Mormon, so please correct me. Or just like,
I'm an ex-Mormon.
It's weird. It's weird to say what Mormons do, but he was explaining that since Mormons are kind of isolationary, like they go and they isolate themselves away from other countries and cultures and everything, that they also kind of have to make their own entertainment. So the fact that this thing, because he was like theatrical release, or you said theatrical release.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm pretty sure this didn't play like where I grew up, but that's because they didn't have like the Mormon multiplex. And if you did have a Mormon multiplex, like what kind of...
It doesn't go at the Mormon multiplex. This goes to the Cinemark, bro. Like this was like at the movie house. But I think they contract like with them somehow, because they're all owned by Mormons too. So out here. And so, yeah, I remember distinctly at a young men's activity, we went and saw this movie, and you tortured me 4 hours of revamping this history yesterday. I was like,
What? And when you say 4 hours, it was 2 hours, and 2 long hours, both of them, but 2 hours for the 1989 version. And then there was a crowdfunding that ran in 2016 that made it again. And it's weird because it's like the exact same movie, just newer. So it didn't really add or subtract. So yeah, it was like 4 hours of Mormon musicals. And I'm not even joking, or I'm not even trying to kind of be salacious here, but I felt nauseous, and I rarely feel nauseous, and I didn't eat anything weird that day. For some reason, just 4 hours of Mormon musical in particular. And I made a note to you, which you might be happy about. But like, this is the most like anti-Mormon propaganda I think you could show somebody. Like, up until when I saw these 4 hours, I was kind of on board. I'm not saying I'm going to become a Mormon, but like the pathway was there. It looked a little warm. I know all the inviting part. I know all the weird parts before I knew all the other stuff, which is kind of interesting. So now when someone's like, oh, that's crazy because they do X, Y, Z, and it's like, yeah, I know. That's kind of the cool part. This is
You're
not
like,
the
I mean,
cool
that
part.
sounds fun. Yeah.
Saturday's Warrior was like, these people don't know how to have fun. They don't know how to make music. They don't know how to do anything that I find creatively valuable.
They can dance.
In the movie.
They can dance. A little bit dancey.
They can, and it's a little bit weird because it was just like, how many... Imagine being like one of the most blatantly, like, I guess, anti-homosexual groups,
anti-race,
but you have to make a musical.
Yeah,
like, where do you go to cast people that are like, it's a tiny little pond, and even the fish in that pond are probably gay, pretending like they're not gay, right?
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And then on top of it, the first one is like, there's no other colors in it. I don't remember seeing.
I actually counted in both movies. In the first one, they had 2. And one of them was a bad guy because he was in the ripped denim vest group that was about zero population. And then there was one good one in that too, but it was the one passing the Dear John letter. So he's kind of a neutral.
Yes, it's very weird that they would even bring up such weird New World. Or when I was looking back at it, I'm like, this song can get in your head still, even though they were like, no, we don't like this agenda, but yet we're gonna sing a whole song about it. And I'm like, that seems strange. Okay.
Also, it's weird though, is they're not even afraid to talk about the zero population and like abortion and like that. They made that the premise of the song in the movie, but for some reason they couldn't make it like good metal or anything. It wasn't even, it was like weird Partridge Family, like Beach Boys, singing. But it was about
the Osmonds. The Osmonds are Mormon. They probably did it after that. Like that's real. So,
but I'm just mean like if you've got a song that everyone's going to get upset about, and it's about like zero population and get rid of the rest of the people, that could be like a Cannibal Corpse song or a Pantera song or something, and it would have been more on brand.
No. Yeah, I would have liked that better.
Well, that's what I'm saying is maybe like the Mormons are like, we can talk about the worst things that happen, but making like rock music is a line too far. Like we can't actually do that far.
So funny. No, we definitely cannot do that. No, they would not do that. They are very sing song about everything. I challenge you to go back and listen to any conference in the last 2 years, LDS Mormon conference, and listen to the way they talk. It's very hypnotic. I think they literally teach them some things, and they have a lot of ties with the CIA. I'm just saying.
I gotta say, I think Catholics do it better. They've had more time to practice, but the way that like I remember growing up in the Catholic Mass, everything was a song. It was all just like like every single thing that they had to say was always in this like hypnotic chant.
That's true. They do chant.
Any good religion should be a little sing-songy, right?
It makes me I literally became aversion to all males that were semi-soft, not feminized, but like a little too soft, wearing the penny loafers. Like it became a thing for me. I have never dated or married anyone that doesn't wear work boots to work. So that fixed me.
Do they make penny loafer work boots? That would be kind of cool.
Ugh. I still would not and it used to be funny. People used to say, oh, you're a nurse. You get when I was single, oh, you could date doctors. I'm like, ew, do you know they sit with their legs crossed like a girl? Like, no way. No. Yeah, I can't. And
it's funny because in this movie, they don't say it outright, but fashion plays a huge freaking role because everyone so we'll start with the 1989 movie first. I figured that
was the one for me because I'm older, right? Like,
but like I was making some very distinct notes, and it was like all of the good Mormon people are wearing like flowing, maybe slightly unbuttoned, magical underpantsy kind of like flowy garments, right? And then when it shows anyone that's bad, it's a midriff. It's going to be tight. It's going to have denim with like little like fringe hanging off the edges. It was weird that they almost were trying to paint a visual aesthetic of like, okay, now when you see the guy with if they have denim on at all above the waist, then like they're going to be a bad guy. Is that
Yeah, no, and they do this in the Temple movie as well. They dress Lucifer all in black, and he's like got a cape and very vaudeville, actually strange. But yeah, they do this. They like to do this. And because I said I wore this dress because it's a Sunday type dress, but this would not be acceptable at church, even though it goes almost down to my ankles. Like it's not acceptable because I have.
Yeah, I was going to say something. This is actually, we might have to censor this episode a little bit. You weren't really thinking ahead.
I know. I don't know.
What would happen in the early 90s and you start walking around downtown Salt Lake City with like a fringe jacket, like a denim jacket? Would the cops get called immediately?
No, but my mom was very edgy, I'll tell you, and she was very like cool. She was very cool, and she was very Jack Mormon, right? Remember that whole discussion? So people would look at her some kind of way, And she didn't even wear like a midriff or anything. She just wore like form-fitting clothes and cool, like fringe little stuff. Not acceptable behavior. No. People give you the look. They don't say anything.
What about interpretive dance, which was the majority of this movie? If you had to pick a single redeeming quality of the whole movie, it might be the interpretive dance that is all throughout it. It's the only thing that looks like it took some skill, and it's a little bit interesting, but it's also really kind of cringy. You know what I mean?
It's so cringy.
Some of those moves, it was like, is this really acceptable in the Mormon? Like they're kind of, air humping a little bit. Is that something you could do out in Mormon public?
Definitely not. Not even today. No, definitely not. And it's an interesting thing that they support certain things in certain places. Like if you're at the gym, you don't have to wear your magic underwear, and if you're at dance class, you don't have to do that, or swimming or whatever. But then that's okay because blah blah blah, right? Like we talked about before. Like if Becky's a professional dancer and this other lady's just a mom at home, she has to wear them all the time. Becky doesn't have to. Like, is that okay? It's okay. She has.
Did they not make magic Mormon sports bras?
They do not. One underwear
like
for
you could have more gains. Like you might be missing out on gains if you're not doing that.
Yeah, you would think that they would, honestly, but maybe it's just too much to alter for all the things. Like that would be.
That's not holding us back. I think we could come out with some. Right?
I think Andreas.
About it. Okay. I'll hit up Andreas on that. It might be actually part of mandatory church gear. Like you'll have to wear a sports bra, man or woman.
It's better that. Better that than what I had to wear forever, because you have to wear the garments and the bra. So you're wearing so many clothes all the time. It's hot. I don't like that.
There was this one scene that it was in both movies, but it was so weird that the movie starts out, and I want to understand this because I understood what they were doing in the movie, but I don't understand how it could possibly work in like the actual Mormonism. So it's Todd, and I can't remember his wife / partner / girlfriend's name, but Todd's like the guy you see in both movies at the beginning in pre-existence, which is like not heaven, not purgatory, but like a before place. And
we lived before, and we chose our parents. We lived in heaven as spirits, and we chose our parents and our situations. We chose all of our problems, like large problems that you would face, not tiny problems, but like if you had like some epic thing in your life, like the wheelchair girl, apparently she would have known that, and which I thought was weird.
Known it or chosen it?
Chosen it.
So she decided to be in a wheelchair.
Which they didn't explain that well in the movie, because she's like, I just want to dance and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly what the theology is. But
So there is a little creative license, because the other part that really was messing with my head is that it starts out with Todd's girlfriend / partner kind of angry at him because she's already jealous. And it's like, when you go down to that earth and you get that physical body, you're just going to be, whoring around with girls, and you're going to be seeing them. And he's like, honey, I won't know. Like, they're going to wipe my memory and I won't know that you're down there. You can't get mad at me about this. And she's like, no, I am mad, because if you loved me, like, you would find me or you would wait. And he's like, I won't even know to wait, And I'm just like, it seems weird that they're in pre-existence, which is kind of like a subdivision of heaven somehow, but she's jealous about things that like an art already. Like, if that's heaven, right? Is there never an escape from that? And that's just how it is forever? Or
well, and like, how does that work with the whole you're gonna have polygamy after you die sitch, right? Like, because they say that we, like Mormons, will still have that opportunity, and this will all get worked out. Like, that's how they just put it in a basket. Oh, it'll all get worked out.
They don't touch polygamy at all in this movie. It's not addressed. It's not implied. No. It doesn't exist. And I just want to tell me if I'm wrong in this, but being a new Mormon, like a newcomer to Mormonism, I've kind of been introduced to it after the Jeff Warren's show sponsor, but after he got arrested and all that, that was the first time that I ever heard about the big polygamy
Really?
aspect.
Oh,
And it was
yeah.
also, it was painted in this light of like, no, that's this rogue thing. That guy went crazy. He made his own version of Mormonism. That's not
Oh,
real Mormonism. So I've
that is
never
real.
once outside of Exmos ever associated like polygamy with Mormonism, outside of South Park and stuff.
No. So what happened really is Mormonism is a core part of the teachings of the Book of Mormon and the Mormon Church. So it is a core essential piece. And the reason why Warren Jeffs and these other people break off and make their own sects is because they put a stop to it. And what they basically did is they threatened Utah, because the Mormons moved to Utah because it wasn't a part of America when they moved here. It was part of Mexico. And so then they were like free to be their polygamy selves. They'd already been ran out of everywhere. And Brigham Young was the second prophet who basically moved the Mormons here to Salt Lake. And he had over 50 wives. And he is one of the prophets of the mainstream church. And
so it's not just an option. It was like you wanted to have polygamy.
Oh no, if you essentially, if you did not marry 3 wives and become a polygamist, you will not go to the top heaven in the original teachings of the Book of Mormon, period. Not just these crazy groups. This is a core teaching, core value of the church, unless you go with the break off. The first break off was Joseph Smith's wife, when he died, said, we never did polygamy. He wasn't a polygamist. That's all a lie. As far, even on her death.
Says the Exmo.
Yes. No, this is real. This is real. Look this up for real. She said this was never a thing. So then her son even said, are you sure? Like on the deathbed. And then she said, yes. And you're going to go and fix the church. So that became the Reformed LDS Church, the RLDS. And then Brigham Young took the main bulk of the actual church, the polygamists, and moved to Utah. And that is the real actual first break off of the church splitting. And polygamy was a core essential part of the Mormon actual church until the government was like, listen, if you don't stop this, we are going to take your land. We are going to put you all in prison, all this stuff, because they were just sick of it. And they were like, you are now back in the America because of this purchase. You are an American now, back again. Like I said, they didn't want to be. They tried to be outside and start their own state, basically. And it was called the Beehive, the Deseret state. So when they came back and it was renamed, it was taken over by the government, and they were given an option: either stop it or we will throw you all in prison. We will take your land. We will take everything you have. And so all of a sudden, the president of the church at that time, prophet, seer, and revelator, prayed about this and said, you know what? I heard that we should stop it too. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
If an elder comes to my door and they show me the Book of Mormon, can I still open it up and point to an exact place where it says polygamy is acceptable?
Doctrine and Covenants 132.
And they never edited that part out or released like a new revised edition or anything?
Nope. What they did instead is made the Articles of Faith, which say you have to obey the laws of the land. And so the laws of the land became a big deal to Mormons, and they also didn't want to have everything taken away and all their men imprisoned. And they'd been ran out of quite a few things at that point. Let me Google which prophets stopped.
So could they make a laws of the land that everyone has to drink coffee and smoke weed? And
they never would.
They would. Right, but in theory, if they passed that law, or it's
no, if a prophet came out right now, it would be gone. And actually, I've heard they've really loosened it up. Now they kind of say it's up to you. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. But Wilford Woodruff published a manifesto in 1890 that officially ended polygamy for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This manifesto was inspired by the political press dispatches that claimed the church was still allowing plural marriages, which they were, and that they feared that the practice would lead to the destruction of the temples once again. So the government, actually, there were, if you look up the Mormon wars between the government and the Mormons. It was like a thing. So they passed 1887 Edmunds Tucker Act proved the final straw. The U.S. Congress renewed its attack on polygamy. So they were going to seize all the assets. He was fearful of this, and they just didn't want to basically lose everything and have to start over again. But there were a lot of Mormons that said, listen, this is the word of God, and you cannot change this. This is like the whole foundation of the church. And so they branched off and called that guy a false prophet, Wilford Woodruff. They said he's a liar. He's actually not called of God because he would never go against God's teachings like this. And so they went and did their own thing. And that's where fundamentalism came out of. And there's so many of them. There's like a whole bunch of branches of fundamentalist Mormons. So,
well, all that to say that this movie puts a very specific and strong plot point about like a monogamous relationship, that these two people that are paired in heaven are going to be reunited on earth if they're lucky. And I'll get into that when we talk about the second movie. But in the first one, they keep it kind of simple. But like when you saw this movie in what, 89 or 90 when it came out,
I was so
was your expectation in Mormonism was monogamy a thing, or did you expect that one day you might have a husband that had 4 other wives?
No, because that ended in like 1896. So everything for mainstream Mormons since the 1900s basically has been like, that's gone now. That was, they blow it off like this, like, oh, all the men were killed in these wars that I'm telling you about, and all the men had to take these widows on. I'm like, no, they weren't. They were marrying young girls. Like, that's a lie, but whatever. So, I mean, they basically always came up with, all my life, I was told they had to do it. They had to bite the bullet. They didn't want to. Just like Joseph Smith said, I don't want to, but by the sword of this angel, I must be a polygamist. So
I hate it when that happens. Yeah. Stupid sword. Angels and their stupid polygamy sword.
You know what? John D. also mentioned getting stabbed with a sword, or maybe it was Kelly. But anyway, apparently they
probably got stabbed with Edward Kelly's sword, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, yeah, could have been.
It was just a misfire, though. It wasn't intentional. There was just a lot going on. There was angels. There was demons.
Well, they were tunnel buddies. I mean, they were.
It doesn't. It's not the same if it's for magic. If it's for magic, it gets a pass.
It's different. Totally. It was magic though. And so I think Joseph knew it was, but I also think that he'd already been down that road with the whole treasure digging and got like thrown into court. So he was like, better not, maybe keep that on the DL. Maybe we best lay that one quiet, like about magic. I think he knew what he was doing. I don't think he was stupid about that. I think he absolutely knew what he was doing when he was channeling. But like I said, the whole wives thing, that was just played off as, oh, they just had to take care of these women. Women couldn't work back then. And poor Sheila next door, she had 20 kids and she needs a husband. So that's basically what they made it out to be my whole life.
I'm going to pull up, if you're listening, you'll have to just go and find Saturday's Warrior 1989 on YouTube.
So bad.
But I want to at least show a couple screen caps just so as we talk about it. Here we go. Why not, right? Why not show a couple?
Oh, it's so
pictures?
Funny. Yeah. And I love that they did this as I'll let it play. Hold on.
Well, I'm not going to do a straight play because I don't want to get it taken down for
that's true.
Silly reasons. But like, it starts out here. I'll do a quick little, but it does like a little Star Wars kind of thing going on. Yes. And then one of the things that I noticed, this is really weird too, like the credits, someone just filmed on like an afternoon when they brought their kid to a park. This isn't like stock photo. It's just like horribly shot. Okay, and then
I think these are real pictures of the kid that was the first kid. If I remember
maybe. Correctly. I mean, there's way more color in the kids that they show in the credits than you see in the rest.
Yeah, maybe so.
So okay, and then it opens to interpretive dance, and like a majority of this movie is just lots of interpretive dance, and this just feels very spicy for an opening to a Mormon movie. And not just that, but one of the things I want to note is that as they show all these characters, and here's Todd, and here's his like girl, before they get sent back to Earth, but they show the family.
Is not in line. Todd's hair is not in line with.
Well, I assume none of them are. They've all got some. Well, and also Todd is like that. Like might be a Jackmo, because he smokes and like he's got long hair and he's an artist and he gets kind of like converted into Mormonism, even though he started as a Mormon. I guess we all do, right? Is that the idea? Is that everyone starts as a Mormon?
Everyone's. Oh yeah, you. Yeah, of course.
And then they show the family, and it might be hard because it's a little bit blurry in here, but everyone has a different color. Like there's like 9 kids or something, and they literally all have a different color: yellow and brown, red, orange, blue.
Pastel,
you know what I mean?
Pastels too, light colors. Yeah.
Is that acceptable? Like, would you see a family that had like 8 or 9 different colors, like a full spectrum, or do you usually have to keep it to like a few?
No, the only thing the fundamentalists keep to the original teachings, which is they don't wear red. The color red is evil, and they wear pastels. So
there's definitely a red in here. The little girl right there in the middle is definitely in red. So she might be a demon.
No, this isn't. They're not fundamentalists, so they're okay.
Like, well, clearly, yeah, they're doing interpretive dance and okay. And a side note, just because it's so weird, is this little girl in yellow. Her name is Emily, and the only reason I remember that is because in the remake, they also have the youngest girl named Emily wearing yellow. Like they literally didn't change much at all between the two movies, which made it a little bit harder to watch because it's just like, oh my god, I saw this already. Like
I've seen this show. Yeah,
It's weird because she's the last one to go, because she's the youngest. So first of all, is this a snapshot in pre-existence? Like, because she's not going to be young forever. Like, even when she goes there, she starts as a baby and then she gets older. So why are they all different ages here at this point in time? Like, why isn't she 30?
She should be. I think the actual theology teaching is like, they say this, we're all at our best age whenever you kind of peaked.
What if she peaked when she was like,
I mean, I guess she
5.
peaked there. Yeah. I think they did this for aesthetics of the movie, but like in teachings, I've always heard it's like between 25 and 30, right in there. And like you're youthful, but still like a good part of your life before you really start to age. So.
And would there be a timeline, like everyone's in line and you would know that you're like 9th to come out of your mom's vagina? Like in heaven, you're like, oh, I can't wait to be the 9th one out of that one.
Yep. You know exactly. You chose your space, you chose your family, you chose your circumstances. And God, if it's bad stuff, like, then, you were willing to take that on because you were so righteous, right? Like you're so good. So,
but even if you've decided all that, it doesn't mean it really happens. Because like in this movie, she's the one. We'll explain the difference between the movie and the real Mormonism. But like Emily's concerned because she's like, what if mom dies before she gets to have me? And then another one was, what if I get born to a different mom somewhere? And that blew my mind because I didn't know that was a possibility. And it comes up multiple times in these movies. In fact, there's like a really horrible recurring joke, but they're like, oh yeah, every once in a while I'll deliver a baby to the wrong parents, but thank God the hospital usually clears it up. But then another time there was a couple and they were like asking the person that sends them back down, or at least is, I don't know, like the guy that talks between them and God. But they're like, well, could you at least put us on the same street? Well, could you at least put us in the same city? Well, if not that, can we at least be in the same time period? And it's like, wait a minute. So when you're in pre-existence, like one of you can get shot to year 3000 and one of you can get shot to year like 200, or how does that work?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, they say you pick your circumstances. I don't know. I think they did that in the movie for funny, like to be funny, but they definitely
it's a super deep inside joke because it's all crazy and funny to me. So like, if the Mormons are sarcastically putting something in, it's like, oh, this is so outlandish to laugh. It's like everything's on the table. Like I took all of this as gospel.
Yeah, no, that was like a funny joke. Like it would have been taken as like, haha. Like, but we in the pre-existence, you have already supposedly picked your family. You know which one you're going to. All that. So that was like a mistake, like funny, haha, angel.
Well, to be fair, there was an actual punchline in that, and it was kind of funny because they were like, can we be in the same street? No. How about the same city? No. How about the same timeline? No. And the guy's like, how about the same family? And they're like, yes. And then they take a second, and then they're like, wait a minute.
No. Yeah, then they're like, ew, no. And actually I caught that too and thought, ew. And then the other thing I caught was when they were going to go down for the pre-existent life to the other life, he was like, yeah, this is really scary your first time. That's not theology. We don't believe in reincarnation over and over stuff. So that was weird. I kind of caught that and I was like, what? Why did he say that? That was a little strange, but yeah.
How do you think all like these weird things skip through the censors? What do they just allow it, or do they not see it, or what?
I mean, it's probably just going, if there's any kind of problem with this, they're definitely always going to say, the church is not over this movie. This is interpretation from somebody so-and-so, blah, blah, blah.
Fair point.
And yeah. So that's what they'll do every time, even if they paid for it, marketed it, whatever they do. I've got another situation like that with a book, and it's fallen really into this crazy court case that I was telling you about. And the church will put things on a recommended read list and then take them off and on. And so they won't take this one book off, and they probably should. It led to a murder and a cult inside the Mormonism cult, in my opinion. But yeah.
Here's the full rainbow.
Yes.
It's like a bag of Skittle, like Mormon Skittles.
Mormon Skittle babies. Yes.
And there is a red / pink in there.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple weird things that were going on with setting up the lore, which apparently is not canon.
No.
And somehow the incest joke made it through everyone that needed to give it approval. They were all like, I like the incest joke. That's a good one. Like, we are Mormon after all. So there's going to be a little bit of... And then they also get very specific. So once they get down onto Earth, right? So this is like all this heaven part. And here's are the two elders. So there's there's like a bunch of different plot lines going on. So the first plot line is Todd and his girlfriend. I'm going to say girlfriend because I don't know what's the actual term for your chick in heaven.
It's just girl.
So Todd and his girl, they are kind of having this debate about like, will you find me on Earth, yada yada. Then we get introduced to the family, and they're all worried about if they're all going to make it to Earth, if they're going to come in the right order, all that stuff. And then you've got the two elders, and they've got this song which I really like. It's called like Humble.
I knew you were gonna like this song, and then
it's a great premise. And this is Mormon humor that I can understand and get behind, where it's like they know that in order to be a convincing, like to have persuasion when you're out on these missions, you probably do need to not be so humble that you don't even talk to anyone, because they play these guys off each other, where one of them is really reserved and the other one spontaneously is just like, you there, little girl, old lady, listen to me. And he's like dancing and making cow noises. And the other one's more reserved, but they're basically like, we have to go out there and just convert as many people as we can. Like, they want to get on the high score charts, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. That's how missionaries are. Yep.
So
they definitely care. These
are the three main plot lines. And then a spoiler alert is that one of these elders ends up meeting or like growing up with Todd's girl. So Todd's girl at the very beginning, if I can keep this structured. So here's Todd and his girl. And then she ends up later on meeting one of those elder guys here, the tall one, and they grow up together. He goes off to go on a mission, and he's basically distraught. He's like, as soon as this is so weird, like Mormons just assume the second that the girl or the man is out of their sight, they're already like getting married to somebody else.
No, they are. This is actually, this is real. This Dear John letter for Mormon missionaries is so very common that this is why they put it in here, because this is real life, because you can't do anything. You can't have relations or anything. Unless you're married. So the big joke is Mormon missionaries get married within 30 days of getting home, whether they are engaged or not. And that is pretty good stats there. Between 30 and 90 days, they will be engaged. And the girls, as soon as the guy's out of the site, then the other guys move in, because they're not supposed to promise to 100% wait, which her mom tells her not to do in this show.
So that's a Mormon thing.
Yeah. Because what if that's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she is free to date while he is gone, and he cannot even be in a room. So when you're a missionary, whether you're a girl or a boy, you cannot be in the room with the opposite sex at all ever without your companion, which is his companion in the movie, you know, the more reserved guy. And they are 24/7 together unless they're in the bathroom or showering or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so that actually provides a lot of extra context, because in both of these movies, I was wondering, like, if they're really so into each other, why is he so concerned about it, and why does she already have something lined up like the second he leaves? But I guess
Yeah.
that's just part of how it works in Mormonism.
Yep. And you're your brother's keeper. If you're a missionary, you're your brother's keeper, which makes more sense in the context now that you know that. Like, he's literally in charge of, you know, if he's down, you bring him up, like how the one guy started getting more animated when the one guy was down and sad. So you're supposed to help each other, right? Because they rip these kids away from their parents. They are not allowed to speak to their families or do anything like that, except they've changed the rules a little bit. It used to be on Mother's Day and Christmas you could call home for 2 years. That's it. And then the rest are letters. And so now I think they can do email, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they could do emails.
Oh, but so if I'm on a mission, I can't call my mom on like a Wednesday and just be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Nope. It's a full cutoff. You are serving the Lord, and your mind needs to be with the Lord, and you are to be no TV. No, it's very strict. It's like everything has to do with your mission and converting people, period.
What,
It's like
what's crazy is this sounds so close to the military, where I only was thinking about the Dear John letter, because that was the same thing, that if anyone in your unit gets a letter from their girlfriend back home, everyone's just like, it's a Dear John. And it usually was. It was usually for the exact same reason, where it's like, you're out of the scene and everyone moves in, and now it's like, it's fair game. So that became a thing. But now you're talking about, you can't call home, you can't talk to your parents whenever you want to.
Can't talk to your girlfriend for sure. Can't talk. Yeah, I can't talk to that girlfriend.
No TV. This is military training. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's like priest and military had a baby, because you got to be in priest training type stuff, like where you can't be alone with women or men, and you're with somebody else all the time, and everything's about this mission. You get up, you read your scriptures, everything's about God. Like, well, the Book of Mormon, really. But anyway, you're praying all the time. You're just engulfed in this, and they have like they go to a missionary training center. It's called the MTC before they go on their mission. And if you get called to like some crazy place where they only talk clicking noises, that's where you learn it. And you only got a couple months. You got a couple months to learn a whole new language, and they throw your butt wherever you're going to go, like France or, you know, Swahili. It doesn't matter. And so they say God will help them learn it. And
do they have to go back to Salt Lake City to count as becoming Mormon? Because in this movie they imply that like they only become Mormon once they actually fly to Salt Lake City. But I imagine if you're in Africa, you don't actually have to move them anywhere. So could you just lie? Could you just say I converted 50?
Well, no, it's all church records. So they send, everything is very organized. So you get a baptism certificate, you have to fill it out. It goes to the church headquarters. Like, they keep all this stuff. They know exactly.
Right, like if they sent me to West Africa and there's no other Mormons around except for me and my missionary bro, and we both decide like, hey, let's kill this. Let's get the charts. Let's say that we baptize 50.
I think you have to have other people from your stake. So you've got your missionary people there that are over you. You've got you and your companion, but then they've got the missionary bosses and blah blah blah. It's all very like they have to submit it. They get a record number. The guy's probably going to come to your baptism, like this other headquarter guy. Like, it's all a big. It's like policing. You get a number.
It's not as fun. I always wanted to make it fun, but you're always like, no, it's really not fun. There's lots of paperwork involved and people checking in on you.
Actually, there's a ward clerk for every single branch. So like every little tiny parish, like a parish for Catholics, there's a ward clerk that takes care of all the paperwork. Yep. Voluntarily, with no money.
In both movies, the main character is this guy Jimmy, and when he's bad they call him James, and then his sister, who on Earth I guess decided she wanted to be in a wheelchair. and they have a weird relationship. I almost feel like they might, if they were like, send us back as brother and sister, we can still roll with that. That would have been them. There's a much more interpretive dance
Oh my
for when
gosh.
they get sent back to Earth, and then here they are like negotiating. And this is the chick in the first one that makes the joke about we accidentally sent the baby to the wrong parents. Can that happen? Is that a real thing?
No, I don't think so. I think that that's just because everything's predetermined. And that's where they always say you have free agency, but also everything's predetermined, like even the outcome. So I think that's
okay.
weird.
So this was a total joke, funny. But see, like I didn't pick up on that. I thought that was like, man, there's actually Mormons out there that might be worried that they show up in the wrong hospital with the wrong family.
No. That wouldn't really. It was a silly. Yeah.
See, I'm glad that you've got here to clarify, because I was about to just write that into Mormon lore.
Oh no.
Okay, and then here we go. Here they are back on the planet, I guess.
That looks
and
like
here's
when he's leaving for his mission, right?
He's going off to be an elder, and he's already having an issue with like his girlfriend, but now I understand more. Like he knows the second he's on that plane, relationship is over, and she knows it too. But neither of them are really saying it, so it makes it really confusing when it just starts to unfold. I'm like, what happened between the plane ride and now? Especially if they're like all supposed to be so upright and like standing, and then she mentions that my mom made me promise to her that I won't promise to you, and that's a real Mormon thing now.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there a name for that promise?
No, but a lot of them tell the girls and boys, because like my daughter was dear Jode, I guess, whatever. It wasn't, he broke up with her while he was on his mission. And this happens often. Like she did wait 1 full year for him. She got to a year, and then he wrote her and said, I've been praying about it, and I just don't think we're supposed to get married, which is hilarious because he married a girl that looks exactly like her. Not as attractive, but so close. And I just was like, that's weird, but whatever. And this happens a lot. Either the girl will break up with the guy or the guy will break up with the girl, but the men are not supposed to have any romantic anything. So that's
right. And it's funny in this movie, when as soon as they get onto wherever they were going to become the missionaries, right? His homie immediately is like, that 2-timing tramp, like you don't need her anyway. Like all of a sudden they went from like these nice, respectable Mormons to just calling this girl a tramp just because she didn't make like a commitment to this guy that she grew up with. It's weird. Like, is that, I assume that animosity is real because that's more of like a human trait than a Mormon trait.
Yeah, I would definitely say I make jokes, and people say it's because I'm a spicy ex-Mormon, but I always make jokes like a lot of times because of the pressure and the society stuff that they're under. I have seen a lot of Mormons fall away fast and make bad mistakes and then come back to the church, right? They'll like have affairs or whatever, and they're angry with people or whatever is happening, and then they'll be like, ooh, that was my bad, and they'll go back and fix it up. But yeah,
it's kind of an ingenious model if you were to design it that way, because it's kind of like what the Catholics do too, where they just make everything a guilt trip. So at some point you're just like, man, I better go pay that penance. I've been racking up this guilt, all these decades. And Mormonism is very similar, like a smaller scale, maybe.
You guys only have to do like the Hail Marys and stuff, and Mormonism is like serious. You could be thrown out of the church completely and have to be rebaptized.
Yeah, let's not get hasty. They might donate money. Let's not just throw them out here. That's how the Catholics are usually like, if you pay your tithing, if we can negotiate a higher tithing, maybe there could be some leeway.
Yeah, no, that's they definitely are going to get punished. Like if there's some kind of issue where like the second movie, that mom thought she was definitely going to tell her that she had been morally unclean. You could tell she was panicking. She was hitting panic button. She didn't think it was just an engagement. She was worried. You could tell. It's like a Mormon joke. And you could see it all over the place. And if you did something like that, like slept with somebody before marriage or whatever, you're going to be in trouble. You've got some price to pay. You're going to be like, not take the sacrament for 6 months, have to do all these penance things, like go meet with your bishop every week, tell him exactly what you're doing and how you're doing and everything about your life for months and months while he charts it in a little chart. It's like a whole thing. Yeah.
Well, so the second movie is definitely way edgier because they made it in 2016, so they probably had to address some of the stuff. The 1989 version, so they get onto the planet Earth, and then they've got this family that does like a really cheesy like Partridge Family kind of thing, and this one they've got like weird jazz hand outfits kind of going on. But the son wants to be like. Well, the Jimmy wants to be like a badass. He doesn't want to be in the Partridge Family. He wants to like do his own thing, and that's when
rock and roll star.
And he meets these people that all wear denim and midriffs, and that's how you know that they're the bad people.
Bare shoulders.
And bare shoulder. Yeah, it's another really good point. Yeah, look at everything that everyone wears at this point. It's very clothed top to bottom. There's no skin showing, and then it's like a stark contrast. And there's they're angry and they're like. Okay, look at this. Look at how wide the legs are going up in the air, and they got midriffs on, and it's all tight. So this is the bad Mormon stuff, and they start putting nasty thoughts into his head. So then when he goes back home and he sees his parents, they find out that the mom and dad are planning to have another kid, right? And the Jimmy is like, he says some pretty horrific things to her. Actually, some of those things are. Like the mild one was just like, geez, dad, you're going to force, mom here to be breastfeeding when she's 60, which might actually be on the cards for her. And then she's like, he says something about like, you're 40. Is it even going to come out right? Like he's making all these very nasty implications.
Yeah, your baby's going to be not healthy and all this weird stuff.
Yeah, he's going kind of hard on it. And then he makes this stance of like, families, and he has got an exact number. He's like, families should only be having 1.7 children, and we're gonna run out of space and resources. And he's got this whole thing, and this is where that like globalist New World Order agenda becomes the main villain in both movies. Is that it's the kid coming up against these weird New World Order mandates of population control, which was a huge topic in the 90s, and now it's different. Like now it's already happening, and people are like, how do we have more babies? But originally it was like, they're going to, force you to stop having kids, or they're going to like do a Chinese kind of like one child policy on us.
Yeah. Well, and Mormons are encouraged. So there's a little backstory with all this, is that Mormons are encouraged to not stop having children until God basically tells you to, because poor Emily's up there waiting to get down here. So you might blow it if you do that and do this 1.75 or stop having kids or believe this, whatever's happening. So it's really serious, and they take it very seriously. And most Mormon families have 6 kids. It's normal.
Well, and this turns into a kind of a dark inner reference, because as Jimmy is yelling at his dad and his mom and saying, your baby's going to come out lopsided because you're 40, they'll cut back to Emily in heaven, and Emily's up there like, oh, Jimmy, why did you forget about me? Why would you do this to me? And it's weird because she literally is like next in line. Like she's going to be the next one born. And all she wants is to see her family, and she wants to love her family. And Jimmy might be the one that screws it up for everybody, or like he doesn't want her for some reason.
And even though he promised in heaven, remember, that he would not forget her. So.
Well, he's not, I mean, there's forgetting, and then there's like actively advocating for you to just not exist.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got the little family scene, and being a Mormon dad, I assume he has to hit the kid that's this misbehaving. Is that a real thing?
I actually was super surprised that they did this, actually, even in the time frame that they did it, let alone later, because that wouldn't probably happen. They're pretty non-disciplinarian. Even raising your voice, like my mother-in-law and my husband's family growing up is the better family to go off of, because my family was not typical. And they were very typical. Like he said, I think I only remember getting slapped once, and I really deserved it. I can't remember what he said. I think he said a bad cuss word or something.
He was being really mean to his parents here, though. In this scene, he was basically implying that like her uterus was just going to churn out like, tater tots. And it was kind of nasty the way he went about it.
Yeah, he was being bad. It was bad.
So, okay. So it's not as normal for a Mormon dad to slap you across the face because
No. They're very passive aggressive people.
Well,
you're gonna get sent to your room. Yeah.
So hear me out, because I'm learning all this as we talk about it. Is this like the way that the Mormon dad like feels inside? Like he just wants to slap
Probably.
his kids constantly? Because
I bet he would. Like they're very told to be like meek, more meek and mild and humble. And that's not a bad thing. But sometimes, anger is a real emotion and they make people that get angry, like me. I'm a yeller. My mother-in-law thinks I'm going straight to hell for that because I'm loud. And she told me one time, she said, if you would just ignore him. And I said, well, what do you guys do when you fight? And she said, oh, I just don't talk to him for weeks. And I'm like, that's worse. What? And my husband agrees. He's like, that's way worse. I hate that. Like, please don't do that. I'd rather hear you go off for an hour and then you're over it. He's like, it's fine. But like for her to say like, I'm a bad person because I raise my voice, basically.
Okay.
Yep.
You're selling me on Mormonism a little bit more from this movie because I was like, I don't want to get hit. I didn't know where that was part of the equation here. Okay.
No, definitely not.
Which is weird that they're kind of planting this in because this made
But it was the 80s, so I think maybe they spanked more back then. But I can't imagine.
This wasn't a spank.
Like
to be clear, this was a full like slap them across the face. There was some power in it.
Yeah. I was always kind of surprised that they put that part in there, to be honest.
So then Jimmy goes outside and he complains to his twin sister, and this one actually worked better in the new movie, but we'll talk about the old movie first. And so here's another part that really irritated me. This one, it started to irritate me, was in this scene, and it never went away, and it was part of why I think I felt nauseous after a while. But this family is so frustratingly annoying to me because they seem to all know the truth. They all know God. They all know how it works. Like they haven't made any mistakes or anything. They've got their eye on the prize. And Jimmy's the one bad apple. And every time they talk to him, it's always something along the lines of like, oh, Jimmy, you just don't understand. You'll see. One day you'll understand. And this weird holier than that, like it's literally his twin sister. They've been alive for the same amount of time. They've had roughly the same experiences. What makes every other kid and the parents in this damn family, like they've got all the answers. And then Jimmy's the only one that doesn't have the answers. And it's just condescending nonstop.
That is how my husband was raised. And to this day, how they treat him. He is the Jimmy. And they
that would be so rough.
He hates it. And he tells me, like, I've talked to them about my thoughts on God and the Bible. And like, he's not a Christian. He believes in stuff. He just doesn't believe in their stuff. And they treat him like this because this is the two different kinds. This is why I'm in the doghouse and he's not, because I do know everything. I've been to the temple. I've got all the knowledge. I did all this stuff and then I shunned it. Where she's living everything she should. She can't go to the temple yet because she's pretty young. I mean, other than baptisms for the dead. But she's basically holding on to the rod, the iron rod. This is a whole song. Anyway, she's doing everything she's supposed to do. And the family is too. So they're just like, oh, look at dumb Jimmy. He's so dumb. Look at how dumb he is. He knows the truth and he's not even listening. He's so dumb. And my husband hates it. He hates it because he's like, no, I'm showing you like actual proof of things and like this and this and this and how he's read so many books and he's actually studied a whole bunch of the Bible and they don't really read their Bible that much. And even if they do, they just say, well, that part of the Bible's wrong because Joseph Smith said this about that part. So forget about that. Or if it crosses at all, like my husband will say, well, what about this part in the Bible doesn't jive with Mormonism? They'll say, oh, that's just translated.
Oh, Jimmy, one day you'll understand.
Yep. Oh, Casey. Actually, she says it like that. Casey.
So that part is probably the most frustrating with this entire movie series, first and second, just because that's always the end. And it's whenever the parents are looking for advice or someone's looking for advice, the only advice is just keep loving them. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Just love them, and it'll all kind of work out. Which is, I mean, I like the sentiment. I'm not against loving people and loving your family members. Just for the record, I'll go out on a limb here and say it's a good thing to love your family members, but that can't be the end all be all advice for someone that's struggling with like existential crisis, right? just say, oh, just keep loving him.
He's even gone to his parents and written full letters and texts and like really tried on a human level to work things through and like, okay, this is really bothering me or whatever. And they just pretend like nothing ever happened, that there was no letter. And they just are like, hi, how are you guys? Like, it's so weird. It's super Stepford wifey.
Well, to be fair, they just love him and they're waiting for him to come around. They're waiting for him to come to his senses.
He doesn't have the full knowledge and I'm going to hell. So they don't like that he's with me. And she told me that straight to my face. She said, you are not what we wanted for our family. And I was like, cool.
This slight tangent, but it reminds me a little bit of like Twitter arguments, where like people will get into this like this phase or this like zone where all of a sudden they've got a thing that they're trying to push, like this idea, and then someone will come along and be like, well, actually, that annoying, well, actually, here's some things that directly go against exactly what you're saying. And it'll just be like, well, you just don't get it. You just haven't. Yeah. And it's like, no, I have. Look, here are the exact things that we're talking about. It's like, one day you'll look back on this and you'll see how wrong you were. Like they fail to engage anything, any like refutation, like don't even entertain the
even
fact
with
that there's
proof.
a discourse.
Even if you brought the Bible, like my husband has done, Bible verses, multiple Bible verses, and say, this is why I don't believe in Mormonism. Blah, 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 parents, I still love God and Christ. And they'll have an answer. They always have an answer. Like what you're saying. You just don't understand.
So this movie, if they weren't trying to, but they do a great job of really portraying that part of Mormonism, which is one of the biggest turnoffs. Like, man, even if I wanted to, if I just felt someone was constantly condescending and the only thing they ever said was like, oh, you're so stupid, but you'll get it one
Thomas.
day. You're
Thomas.
Oh Thomas. Oh Heidi.
You just haven't gone up far enough in the levels. You just
I hear that a lot. Yeah.
I know.
You're not high enough. You'll one day.
That's why I said that, because I've heard people say that and I'm like, this is funny. But I just think that they are very condescending people, but they are the nicest condescending people you'll ever meet. And they will never.
There's some really nice Southerners, like the whole "bless your heart" stuff, like that.
Oh,
that's
they're very
good.
bless your heart. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay, so there was another weird portion that they didn't really like focus on it, but the Jimmy is like with his family, and like one of the little girl, I think in pink, like one of the younger ones, looks at Jimmy and she goes, "I would die for you." No, it's the youngest one. It's when they're in heaven, I think. Or she goes, "I would do anything for you, Jimmy. I would even die for you." And instead of anyone saying like, "Whoa, that's weird, Emily. Like, why are you talking about you're gonna die for?" Like, no one even like brought up the concept that someone might be dying here, and she's just volunteering this. And he's just like, "Oh, Emily." And it was like this weird, touching moment. But I don't know, man. It's a weird thing to lead with, especially as a child talking to a much older person and saying like, "I'll die for you." Like, I don't know.
It's very sacrificial. I noticed that too. I was like, that's an awkward thing, because then what happens later, I'm sure we'll get to it. And so it kind of makes me wonder if there was a sacrifice there already pre-planned.
Well, and not just that, but as a little kid watching this movie, like that's a weird expectation that you're now setting. That like how many kids go into this movie never even considered that like I might have to die for a family member as part of whatever my religion, I guess. Right. And now you walk out in this family feel good movie and you're telling your siblings like I would die for you.
Yeah, blood atonement type stuff right there. I mean, it seems a little pushy on that little situation, although I mean that would probably be yourself, but I think they're trying to prove a point there. Yeah, it's creepy.
And the girl, I think one of the girls that's singing, they go into like a bedroom scene. I won't be able to find every one of the scenes here, but there's one where it's like the Dear John. Yeah, this is the scene where she's writing the Dear John letter, and one of the girls has this lyric, and I had to stop it and look up the lyrics to see if I really heard this. And she goes, "What do I do when the kids make fun because I'm kind of dumb? What do I do?"
What do I do?
Yeah. And it's like she's embracing it. Like she knows that she's dumb. Like she understands it, and she knows that people are going to make fun of her because of how dumb she is. So the song's nothing about like get smarter or think more about yourself or raise your self-esteem. It's just like, how can I sort of counteract how dumb I am? I just thought it was an interesting lyric to inject into this song.
I think Mormonism, you have to understand a lot with Mormons is they're very fake it till you make it people. They would never on the outer surface be like, oh, I'm just so dumb. They would just be like, hi. Like it would just be not a thing, you know, they would hide it. Any kind of flaw, they're gonna like smooth that right over. Like on Facebook with the in-laws. My mother-in-law is friends with my very normal, quote unquote, normal kids. My kids with tattoos, no. I am not her friend on Facebook because she will not accept it as well. So yeah,
okay,
very all about your how you look, how it looks, the family, all of it.
This is the Dear John part where she's writing it, and then it goes to the missionaries again. So the missionaries are in the park and they do the Humble Way song. But some of the lyrics in this original one that didn't make it into the second one, and there's this one in particular where they're literally talking about Harry Carey, which is I think the Japanese like samurai way of eviscerating yourself out of honor, like where you basically remove yourself from the earth, which doesn't seem like it's compatible with Mormon values, yet they found that to be the most appropriate line to add, not just as a throwaway line, it's in the chorus of this song about being humble.
No, there is the blood atonement thing where, you know.
But that's hurting other people, but harikari is you take yourself out, no?
No, their self. There is actually instances of where blood atonement is, if you have a good friend that can do it for you, that's great. But if not, you should spill your own blood for your sin. Yeah.
What? Okay, hold on. What is there? Are there like specific sins that you just can't clean yourself of? Or
this is off the table now in mainstream, but at one point was mainstream Mormonism teaching. Brigham Young has a quote: "Love your neighbor enough to kill him. Because if he has done a sin that is so great that requires the spilling of his own blood, then help him spill it." And there is a case, Anderson is the last name, in Cedar City, Utah, in the 1800s, where he committed adultery and he knew that he needed to spill his own blood, and he willingly, they dug the grave. He got in his nice clothes and everything and went out and made sure it was done.
Okay, so there's a real angle to this Harry Carey stuff. So they're actually incorporating that into the musical. That at the far end of this, if you're not a good missionary, you might just have to take yourself out, like Brigham Young said.
I mean, and they talk a lot. It's kind of like that return with honor thing with the military, like that. Again, back to the military, like you would rather die than dishonor yourself.
The fact that you mentioned military, because in the rest of this song, there's a lot of lyrics about like being a mercenary and like taking people out and stuff. Like it's weird that they're talking about spreading the word of God, but it's in very militant, violent terms, including the Harry Carey line.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So there's
early Mormonism very much like that for sure.
There's more interpretive dance. Okay. And then I didn't even recognize this guy. It's one of those cases where like you put on glasses and I'm like, I can't even see him. He left the room. But this is Todd from the very beginning. Yes. But in the movie, halfway through, he's kind of just like a weird spiritual guy. Like he kind of has this vibe of the first person that approaches him with a religion, he's on board. And he's just lucky that these two Mormon missionaries are the first ones that got on him, because there's like I won't be able to freeze on the exact frame, but they like give him the Book of Mormon and he opens it up like halfway through and he's like pointing at something like, oh wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And that was one of the questions that I had. Does that seem reasonable that you would find a potential Mormon that not familiar with you and you actually let them read from the Book of Mormon right off the bat? I would assume they'd have like a Cliff Notes version.
They would totally do that. They would totally be like, look at this verse. They have certain verses, and now it's all on phones, but it used to be in that mission training thing where they'll say, this one will really touch them, like if they're asking about this, or this one will really touch them if they ask about that. And there's a whole, like, because my neighbor went on a mission, and when he came back really abruptly because of the vid in 2020. He was one of the first ones to get it that was in the mission field, and so they sent him back. But he was showing me the phone that they give him. It basically, you type it in like, this person asked blah blah blah, and then it gives them like a way to go, oh, go to this scripture, oh, go to that script, so yeah.
Seems like we could replace missionaries with AI fairly easily.
I mean, they kind of do that already, except they're the real handshake and the smile, right? Might be better for all these people not realigning after marriage, right? For their marriage. They're breaking up all these kids.
More demon spawn with their midriffs and denim.
Yes. I can't.
And this is where they really push this like zero population thing in. And he tries to bring the zero population idea back to the family. And they surprise him with this one. It was weird. This is like a really weird thing. So the whole family lines up and they throw Jimmy a surprise birthday party, which he points out rightfully is awkward because he has a twin sister and she's in on it. So it's like she's throwing the surprise party, even though it's technically her birthday too, but he kind of needs a pick-me-up. So everybody in the family actually has some kind of an important gift for him. The little sister gives him like her favorite stuffed animal, which is this monkey. Another one says that they're going to make him breakfast in bed for a week. The little brother says he's going to shoe shine his shoes like every day for a month or something. Like they're all doing considerable, gifts to him. And then they're like, wait, mom and dad, tell Jimmy about your present. And his present is that they're pregnant. And it's just like, that is the crappiest birth. Let's just assume that he doesn't care about the baby coming. He's not for or against it. But it's like, you didn't plan this to be your gift like 8 months ago or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you just forgot to get me something. And now you're just saying, oh, we're pregnant. Happy birthday. Like, that's not a real gift.
Yeah, no, that was silly. I think that probably wouldn't really happen. But honestly, like Mormon moms do have babies on and on and on. I mean,
right. But you wouldn't say that like,
no, I don't think
and it's not even like she's having a baby now. It's like in a couple months in the future. So it's like, congratulations on your birthday. We're
Later.
6.5 months along. Like,
I don't think they would really. It was cheesy. Yeah, that was a weird.
Okay. Well, she knights him. And then, let's get to the spot. So here's like, Mom, you're going to be popping out tater tots. You're 40. You can't have a real kid. And then he like says something really nasty. And then the dad's just going to like lay down that Mormon book of law on him.
Yeah.
You can see the posture. Bam.
Yeah.
That was
spinning back fist.
It looked like
spinning
a gut
back
punch.
Like,
I don't know where that got delivered to, but it's so fat. I mean, the dad's okay. Yeah. That was a backhand with a full wind up and follow through. I didn't even realize that until this rewatching.
Spinning back fist. Yep.
That was a spinning back fist. He takes Jimmy out, and Jimmy's gone. Jimmy is no longer part of the family. Yeah. But the ironic part is that the rest of this family, after he runs out, they're all just like, why won't Jimmy just get on board? Why can't he see the light? They just go right into that condescending talk amongst themselves again.
No,
and not one person's like, Dad, maybe you shouldn't have hit Jimmy. Maybe you shouldn't have physically assaulted your own son because he was lashing out.
Nicer. Yeah.
That's not it though. No, he gets condescended to. Like all of this he brought upon himself, and he'll come back and get more slaps once he comes to his senses. Essentially, that's
prodigal son, very prodigal son story here. This is where they're kind of going with that, and I mean, but that's very common. If you're an apostate and or not active in the church, they do treat you like that, and we're not we're not the ones, right? We're not the ones. Our house is never an option. Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever is never at our house. It's always at the good son's house. There's a good son in our family, and everything's at his house. Everything has to do with them because they're good and they go to church. And
they don't want to go to hell.
Yeah. So Exactly.
You were asking if there's a black guy in the movie. There you go.
Oh, there he is.
There is a black guy. This is the bad one.
Yeah.
He has it's a Billy Vanilli look. Which is even worse. There's a good one too. It's in the Dear John segment, but it's for like a frame. They're just passing the letter like across a bunch of Mormons, and they're just so they kind of balance it out. Okay, so this part I do identify with quite a bit because these are like the bad kids, and I'm going to say like this is kind of like going to public school, right? Like if you're being raised in a little isolated family and they're all Mormons, and then you send your kid off to public school. This kind of was what I was taught in public school and what people would talk about. And it's namely things where they're like Jimmy has like the most cliched, like I'm a seventh grade communist. You know, I just read something edgy and I heard Rage Against the Machine for the first time. And he's like, Dad, we can't have more kids because kids go to hungry every night. Why don't we spend our time improving their quality of life instead of bringing more into this world? And it's this like weird bleeding heart thing that is very much used. Like that's the real justification that you would hear from like school and whatever cartoons and your friends. But the concept was like, we're going to run out of resources. We're going to run out of water, air, land, oil, just you name it. We're running out of it. The only way we can solve it is have less kids. And this is what they indoctrinate Jimmy with in his public school, you know, friend group. And he brings that back home. And that is literally the worst thing that you could tell a Mormon is saying like, we're going to stop having kids.
Yeah. Can't do that because then they're not going to bring all the spirits down. They're waiting up there. And they really put this guilt. They put this guilt on the women, I will tell you. If you decide to stop early, right? Like even if the mom's mentally not okay, like having more kids or they're really poor or whatever, they'll tell you like, "Oh, we'll help you get food. We'll help you." Don't make that the option.
Don't shut the factory down. Keep that thing churning.
Don't do that. Yep. So, there's Mormon guilt on that one too.
Is the guilt like murder? Is it like if you don't have 10 kids, you only had one, you effectively killed 9?
I mean, they don't say it like that, but they imply a lot of things because basically all these kids are in heaven and who knows how many there are. Like you never get a number, you never get like a stop point, you know, that if you were just to stop all of a sudden and you have this many, people are always asking, oh, when are you going to have another baby? You know, it's like a thing. It's very, very common to have pregnant moms at high school graduations or weddings. Yep.
What's the most number of kids that you remember growing up with in a family?
Well, in a normal, typical family,
a non-polygamous, if we have to
non-polygamous family, 11. But my polygamist brother-in-law, ex-polygamous, his mom, just one mom, not the others, had, I think he said 16. So yeah,
that's impressive.
That's a crazy 16 or 13. I can't remember, but there was a lot. It was
but you're saying that even if someone had 16, a year goes by and people are going to be like, so when's 17 coming? Like there's no expectation that like you're done.
And there's a show about this with the Duggars. What is it? How many and counting? Something in counting.
Or is that a Mormon family?
Yeah. The Duggars.
That makes so much more sense now.
Yep. 16 and counting or something like that. I can't remember how many kids they have. We have to Google that. But yeah, no, they have a lot and just keep having them. Even if it's not the best idea. 19 kids and counting.
Jeez. Yeah.
And they're not polygamists. Yeah. They're normal people. Like,
well, as normal as a clown car personified could be.
There you go. Yes. Normal.
The two missionaries in this movie, they're talking to each other and he's kind of recounting all the numbers they went through. And I assume that these are like hyperbolic for the sake of the movie. But he says that in 1 month, they visited 5,000 homes, that they were going on their missionary work for 18 hours a day. They had 125 discussions, which is a really horrible rate. Maybe it's good. I don't know. 125 out of 5,000. And that the main goal is they need to get a baptism. Even just one would be enough for them to consider it a success. And I think they only get one. Is any of that realistic? A, is it realistic that you would go to 5,000 houses in a month, all the way to, would just one baptism be enough for 2 elders to go out on a big mission and only come back with 1 new Mormon? That almost seems like you would get scolded.
They would be happy. They would be happy if you still just got 1, but I don't think you could do 5,000 a month. That seems like really out there.
They visited 5,000 houses.
Yeah, that seems out there in a month. Like that seems
okay. Well, we'll accept that as in movie magic, but would it really be okay for you to go out with a companion and you only come back with 1 Mormon?
I mean, they're happy for anybody that they get baptized. And remember, these are self-funded, so it's not like the church is out anything. I mean, this is a $500 a month stipend, that they have to pay to go.
I mean, I know that this doesn't sound right the way that I can describe it without sitting down and trying to reword it in a way, but like, if you were to tell people, hey, normally we would send our son out for how long are missions again? Like 2 or 3 months or something?
18,
2 years?
Oh, 2 years.
Months? Yeah. 2 years? Okay. Mm-hmm. We're going to send our son away for 2 years. We're going to foot the bill for all of this and maybe 1 other person. So 2 people, footing the bill for 2 people to live in a foreign city for 2 years, all the food, all the travel, everything they need, all accounted for because they're not allowed to have jobs in some cases, right? So
no, you can never have a job.
You could just go to someone and be like, hey, instead of paying 2 people for 2 years, I'll give you that money, but you have to become a Mormon. It seems like you would get way more Mormons.
So this is what it says. According to Arizona Central, in 2014, the average number of people converted by an LDS mission per year was only 3.5. And in previous,
per couple?
Per year. For what? Yep, 1 set of missionaries. So that's like what, 7 for the full 2 years. It was 10. It was 5 each year before, but now it's down to 3.5.
I mean, let's say they're paying $1,000 a month in rent between the 2 of them. They're gonna do another $500 a month split for food and other stuff. So that's $1,500 a month times 24 months. So we're talking close to $30,000. You could probably, well, I don't know. How much would it cost for someone to convert you to Mormonism? And I guess I'm not talking to you, Heidi. I'm talking to whoever's listening. But how much money to be baptized? And do they have to stay baptized for a certain amount of time for it to count?
Yeah, they would want, well, you're going to stay on their records forever unless you petition you have to go through a whole big thing to get your records off. They'll count you forever. But they want active people in the church. So they definitely want people that want to be there, basically, not just for money, because they're going to end up in these positions where you're volunteering. Like I told you, like the ward clerk doesn't get paid. The bishop doesn't get paid. They need these volunteers to do all this free work. There's a lot of stuff going on that's free there. So you can't just have people that are going to sit home and be like Jack Mo. Jack Mo's or no help. They're not paying tithing. That they're not funding the church. They're not doing all the extra things. You've got to volunteer to, be a teacher. They're going to call you to something. Every Mormon does something in church. Promise.
Okay, so you can't just be a Mormon in name only. Like there's lots. No. Okay, you're bringing me back to reality again. Yep. It's sounding less appealing now.
Yeah, they can't, because they need people on the long term so that they can get they pay 10% of their gross income to the church every year, which is verified by your tax returns. And then you also have to accept your calling. Like they'll say, oh, God told me last week, Jenny, that you should be teaching the primary kids that are 3 years old and go crazy every week. And even though you have 9 kids and you don't want to do that because, you have 9 kids and you don't want to be around more kids during your church time. But now you're going to be the teacher for the 3-year-olds.
Better not talk back to God.
Parent spinning back fist. But I mean, this is the stuff they need. They need active members so that they'll go through and go to the temple and It's like this big cycle. So yeah, they got to have some active people. They got to have some interest.
All right. And then, so sometimes too, Mormons don't gain one, they lose one. Because here's an example. Yeah. Pam dies.
True.
Pam goes to
Yeah.
the hospital. She dies. One less Mormon in the world. But
Yeah,
she
she was a
chose
good one
this.
too. She was such a good one.
She
She
was,
wasn't
yeah,
Jimmy.
out of the two, she was the only good one. She was the
Yeah.
only one that could maybe keep Jimmy on the straight and narrow.
Dang it.
And she dies, and Jimmy's kind of torn up a little bit by the guilt, but not enough to go back home and become Mormon again. That only happens
I
when he
don't
meets,
blame him.
well, he meets Todd in the park, who is quite effeminate. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just mean the look, the mannerisms, everything about him is very feminine. And it don't like, I didn't know, because I hadn't seen this movie before. I didn't know what kind of weird routes they had already made jokes about incest and abortion and a whole bunch of other things that felt like they would have been off the table. So I truly, when I saw this, thought that he was hitting on him, and this was going to turn into like a whole different as a way to teach him of how evil the world was and go back home. But no, he kind of becomes friends with this effeminate dude who then draws him. And he keeps telling him, like, no, go back into this pose, like he's Leonardo, DiCaprio painting the chicken Titanic a little bit. So he draws them, and he's like, I don't draw people the way they are. I draw them the way that they can be. And he shows him this weird like sketch of him, and then he shows him a sketch of himself. So this guy is kind of a creeper weirdo, right? He's just like out looking for God and friends and drawing people and approaching them and telling them that their lives are going to be better, I guess. But he's not a Mormon yet.
How good you can be. This is how you can be. You could be better.
And I think this is just planting a seed. Like nothing actually happens as the result of this. He just kind of plants this little seed in Jimmy's head and goes about his way. Here's the bad people again are really selling. They're trying to sell Jimmy on this like zero population thing. Like they're very one note. Like if you want to hang out with this crew, you have to fully embrace zero population. Which
NWO.
I don't understand the name they're calling it though, because zero population just means everybody's gone, right?
Yep.
That's not a real, like, even if you were to buy into the NWO, it's not a real thing to say zero population. Usually they want to cut population by, I don't know, half or something. Thanos style.
Well, and this apparently, I just had to look this up because I wasn't sure why the hell this movie got so damn popular with the Mormons, but it really is. And it says originally it was produced in 1973 as a stage musical for a class in California. And so apparently it got performed at Brigham Young and became popular there later in 1974. And a full stage production took place at that point, and it took until 1989 to produce the movie. But this has always been a very classic thing for parents to say to their kids. Like, I have to tell you, like growing up, this kind of means end of day kids. Like we're like the last of the preordained to come down, and parents will say, well, you're a Saturday's warrior. And I'm like, fine, don't. My mom said that to me a month ago and I almost lost it.
Okay. So the title Saturday's warrior basically means like the battle's tomorrow. You're the last one that we got. So we're counting on you.
It's up to you. Yep. You're one of the last few. And you know, they've got a whole saying for this in the church. It's like the proud, the true, something I can't remember, but anyways, basically about end of days. It's always end of days. Yes, it's like an end of days slogan. Yeah, I'll have to look it up. It's like something like that. And I mean, I heard it the other day because I did an interview with this guy that left a different polygamy sect, and he brought it up, and I was like, oh, I remember this. I remember this now. And it's kind of like a slogan, and Saturday's Warriors kind of like a slogan for we're like that generation because the second coming's coming, you know. So, yeah.
That's kind of one of the exciting parts about Mormonism. But again, it's like, if you look back in history, at least for me, if you got me jazzed up, like, hell yeah, I'm Saturday's warrior, I'm going to go and kill these demons. You know, I'm the last one in line. But then you start reading about your history. It's like, oh, they tell this to every generation. Like every kid's in the last generation. Like, you know, the end times are always next month.
It's tomorrow. Yeah, I think Joseph Smith predicted it multiple times during when he was still alive. So
that's one of the cool parts of Mormonism to me. Not like that sells me on it, but makes it interesting to me is that for like 100 years at least, every new like upstart in Mormonism was always and they weren't like sometime in the abstract future.
No.
They didn't even say lifetimes. It would be like, it's July. In October,
Yep.
the world is ending, and people would like freak out and like to get ready by October. And then it'll be like, oh, actually, maybe it's December. And they'll like always be scrambling month to month. And I guess at a certain point, you can't always do that.
You have to have your food storage and all this stuff. They really put that on you, and you feel really anxious and nervous. Like if you're a new married couple and you don't have that yet, it's super expensive. And you're just like, oh my gosh, because they want you to have 2 years of food storage on hand at all time for every member of your family. And so it's like they're big preppers.
Honestly, I think that's
it's
really
not a
cool.
bad idea, but it's very stressful when you're a young couple and you can barely make ends meet for today, let alone for tomorrow, it's a little stressful, but you get it done. Everybody does it.
So at the end of the movie, the two elders run into the feminine dude on the bench, who's Todd, and they convert him to Mormonism within like minutes. Like again, like he was just looking for anybody to pitch a religion to him, and he would have been all sold. But he loves Mormonism. They get really happy that he's going to go back home, and they're going to baptize him.
Right.
And then so that we've got the scene where they're at the airport. And they show up, and here's the two elders, and he's all excited to see his girlfriend, and they embrace. And then he's like, oh, and by the way, here's Todd. Here's the guy that we brought back to get baptized here in Salt Lake City. I assume that's where this takes place. And his girl immediately locks eyes with Todd, and it's like love at first sight right here. And not only is it love at first sight, but then the boyfriend sees this happening, and you just see like the feet in his face. He's just like, oh God, how could this be happening? And it's weird that they all kind of accept it. It's just like, oh crap, I guess they did know each other in heaven or something. Right here. This is where he realizes, and then they reach for each other. This is like the slowest cucking ever. And then bam, it's over. And he realizes, he's like begging her. He's like, please don't go. Not for this effeminate Todd. And it's done. And then his friend knows. He's already like, bro, like, come on, this is clear. And that's it. That's the movie.
That's the movie. And then, don't forget about Emily. Emily gets to come.
Emily does get to come at the very end.
That's the very end of the movie.
Oh, where is she? Oh, yeah.
On a rainy, stormy night.
Is. Yeah, Emily pops in at the very end, and then we have this really weird credit sequence. I'm not even sure he's holding up a sword here, because they make this analogy earlier on that he's getting like knighted by his sister, and he's a warrior. Okay, I get it. Yeah, Saturday's warrior.
Saturday's warrior. Do-do-do.
This is like the worst kind of. This is the dumbest kind of warrior to ever be. I would rather be an ultimate warrior, not a Saturday's warrior.
Yeah, Saturday's warriors, no bueno. You're on call for a long time, because apparently the end of the world's going to happen again and again and again. So they're people that died Saturday's warriors.
All right,
waiting for Saturday.
I'll see if I can pull up some of the newer one too. I don't know if I can show the clips from it. It is interesting because they come with like a completely different aesthetic for the second version of this. So you saw the original one.
Yes.
What was your takeaway when did you see it like 20 times? Did you see it like a couple times?
Oh, we saw it a lot. Yeah, I can't remember.
Like VHS or in the cinema?
Once in the cinema, but then they played it at church, and they play it in seminary. You forget I went to seminary for 4 years. So they definitely played it a couple times in seminary, because you have to go to, now they make them go before school, because it takes up a credit, because you don't get credit for the class, but you can, if you're a good Mormon, you go to seminary for 4 years. Every year of high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you go one class a day would be dedicated to this. So, to studying the Book of Mormon.
And did you even know that the 2016 edition existed?
I heard that they redid it. I didn't. I did find it on YouTube as well too. If you put it in there, you can find it.
Oh, the new one, the full one.
Yeah. It's on there, but I hadn't watched it for sure. I was out. So I wasn't signing up for that hit. No, thank you.
Well, I watched it.
I did for you. I did for you. I watched it.
I saw both of them, and I'm glad you saw it.
I did.
What did you think? What if you had to compare the two? What did you think about the second one?
The problems were more realistic, which I thought were funny. They definitely did a better job that way, like how they were real worried about this girl. I thought it was weird that they opened with Baptist gospel. Like that was weird.
That was very weird. Also they've got like every skin color and hair type represented in the background here. Very, very conscious. It's almost like a Hyundai car commercial.
That was very weird for me because I was like, we don't dance in white robes ever.
Is this not a scene out of an actual Mormon church right now?
No way.
Does this not happen?
No, never. There's no choir that sings like this. If you've looked up the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, that's as fancy as we get, and it's very structured, and there's no fun stuff.
They make it look pretty fun. This looks kind of fun.
Yeah, nope, none of that. It's not fun.
Okay.
No.
Oh man. And then here's where they're doing like the joke about like, can we go at the same time? Like, are you gonna love me? Are you gonna sleep with other women while you're down there? And he's like, babe, like I won't even know that you exist. And she's like, that's no excuse. If you loved me, you'd remember.
Yeah, no, it's funny. And I mean, this is in English, just so people know, but they did translate it at the bottom. So, but it is in English.
And it's weird. They've got like a little hallway that you walk down. So when you're actually going to enter Earth, I guess you walk down this hallway, and when you get to the end, you're, being delivered. Is there anything on record of like what actually happens? Like, where are you actually right before you pop up on Earth between pre-existence?
No, they don't say, but they do call it the veil. And I think that's why they represent it with the tunnel, because there's like the veil. And once you pass through the veil, then that's when you get the amnesia. So they'll sometimes say that babies are really close to God still, and they're still like really close to the veil. And you'll hear people say that quite often, like, oh, they probably feel God's spirit with them still, or see things that we can't see or whatever. So yeah, I think that's what they're trying to represent there.
Let's see. There was a couple of things that stood out in this one. Slightly more diverse cast. There's a song where they're singing about 100 years is just the blink of an eye. That I don't know if they sang it in the first one or if I only noticed it in the second one. But if that's the case, then
that's what I think. Yeah.
Like, how long is Emily really waiting? Let's say that they don't get around to having Emily, so she's stuck up there. She's only waiting the blink of an eye, right?
Right. Yeah, they do say stuff like that like God's time frame is so different than ours that it is a blink. That is a term they use.
Right. So if someone's guilting you into having more kids, can't you just be like, don't worry, it's just a blink of an eye. Like she can wait.
But then she doesn't get a body. And if she doesn't get a body, then that's a problem. Even if the baby's a miscarriage, they still consider that being like born. And your life was just fast, but you have to be brought here to Earth somehow.
But is there a chance that Emily will just get it on the second time around, or it's like you get the one chance, and if no one has Emily, because then what happens to Emily if no one actually ever has Emily?
Yeah, she would have to be reassigned to a different family. I think that's probably her haste. Like, oh no, I don't want to go without my family. So. I
mean, could you be just stuck in the
show? Remember in the show where they were like, that was a false alarm and he had to go back? That one was weird. I think that might have been a representation of a miscarriage for him.
I know that was in this one, the second one, because the difference is that in this one, Jimmy, it follows the same plot line, right? So the 2016 version, they lean a little bit more to the music. So it's not just Jimmy falls in with a crowd that's like telling him about this zero population. He's got a band that he's part of, and the band starts to blow up. It's a rock, it's a rock band. Yeah. It's very mild. It's very weak.
Boy band. Rock. We'll say boy band. Yeah.
It's not even that edgy, but yeah, sure. Boy band-ish. And they want him to write a song that promotes zero population, abortion by name. In the first movie, a little girl's like, do you mean abort? And as soon as she gets that far, someone's like, shh, don't even say the word. Which felt like they were talking directly to the audience at this point. Like, don't even say the word out loud. Like that would be harmful. In this one, it's in the song lyrics, and it's like part of the hook again. It's like abortion, it's the only way. Like it's actually like the whole song.
They're saying the word. Yeah, they've gone there. They went there. They're edgy now.
So that's the premise of the second movie, is that he goes all in on this band talking about and like singing this abortion song called Zero Population, and that his family shows up in support one night, and like as he's singing, like about all these people and how we should eliminate more people and there's not enough resources, and he looks out at his family of like 9 people in the audience, and he realizes he's kind of being hypocritical because he comes from this family that's got 10 times more than everyone else that he's advocating for, and they slowly, very dramatically are like lower their heads and shake it like, oh Jimmy, you know what I mean, like you're so dumb Jimmy, and then you see them in reverse wheel out his twin sister as like she goes out of the light into the darkness. It is like the most foreboding, foreshadowing thing. Like as soon as they did that, you're like, she's gonna die.
She's done for. That's it. Yeah, no, it was definitely. And yeah, the family's just like, oh my gosh, look at this shamefulness. Shame, shame, shame.
And he goes on tour, and again, just like the first movie, his twin sister dies. And I guess he goes back home, and he's trying to come back to Mormonism. Actually, before she even dies, I think after like that one of those first shows, he's like, man, I really don't know if I truly believe in this zero population stuff. And he goes to tell his parents, like, look, mom and dad, I want to come back home. Like all that stuff, it was a mistake. But they like misinterpret this when he comes back home, and they don't let him to get this out. And then they mention that they're having a kid, and he flips out, and it turns into like this whole big thing. And even the mom's like, honey, like this isn't what this was about. But the dad is too stubborn and stuck on something. So he ends up pushing Jimmy out. And then Jimmy, they've got this hilarious montage where he's like sleeping late in a car. And then there's another scene where he's like in a restroom, and there's toilet paper all over the ground, and he's kind of like passed out slightly, but never once do they show anyone smoking, drinking, doing drugs.
No,
it's just I could watch it and just be like, oh, Jimmy's like just sleeping in a lot now. Like
Jimmy is partying. He is not one of the one mighty and strong. That's what I was trying to find earlier.
Okay.
By the way.
Well, that's the implication is that he's like partying so hard that he's passing out, but they never actually show him doing anything at all other than him being passed out.
He had a Coca-Cola. That's
right. He had a mean Coca-Cola, maybe 2. He had a Jolt Cola.
He had a bang.
Like heroin.
He had a bang. Oh no. Oh my gosh. A Monster energy drink. Actually, Mormons drink those all the time. But
so yeah, he goes back home. He tries to sort this out with his parents, and then his mom starts going into like early contractions or something. So yeah, I do think because they show Emily in heaven, and Emily's like, all right, this is my time. And the lady's like holding her back, like, Emily, calm down. It's like, you still have to wait a little bit longer. And they're kind of implying that like Emily's trying to just like punch her way out of that womb. Like she's ready to go.
Because,
you know what I mean?
Because she's the last of 9 kids or 10, whatever we're at now. It's her uterus, man. Her uterus can't take anymore. That's what it is.
It does in real Mormon lore now, right? Not in the movie.
Yeah.
Does Emily get to see any of this happening, or is she just waiting in like a empty room for something to happen to her?
Supposedly you can watch your family. Yeah.
Okay.
Supposedly it's a little screen show. You get to see what's up there. So
because they don't really imply that very well in this one. But it does show Emily every once in a while, like, oh, Jimmy, did you forget? Like, did you forget about me? Did you break your promise?
You dick. Jimmy's a dick now, and he doesn't care. Yeah.
They repeat the same joke about delivering babies to the wrong mothers, which, according to Heidi, that's not a real thing. I wanted to think that was a real thing. Jimmy, the actor, opened for Aaron Carter in the real world, so he was on his way to becoming like a true big boy band. So Jimmy is almost an autobiographical role for the guy that plays Jimmy in a weird way. And speaking of that, in the first movie, Todd, the main guy at the beginning and end, he went on to play in another Mormon movie about pre-existence called Star Child.
I didn't get to Star Child. I need to watch that.
I couldn't find a copy anywhere. I only found one result of a VHS that was sold on eBay in 2018, and
And
I
it
haven't
must be
found anything
something.
else.
It must be something they don't want out, because that's what they do. They get rid of shit. Like when you can't find something and you go down a rabbit hole of something that's been produced by Mormons or for Mormons, that's why. And I think it's a little close to Moonchild by Aleister Crowley. And to be honest, I said that when you sent it to me, and I thought, yep, they're going to get rid of that one. So
Well, if anyone's listening or watching and you can somehow get your hands on
Send
a
it to
VHS
us.
copy of Star Child from 1999, we will 100% watch it. And I might actually lose it in a bad part of town where they rip those things and they put them online into websites. It's a horrible world out there. And I'll try not to let it fall into those kind of hands. But it might, especially if I can get a VHS copy.
Listen, they're the ones that put it out. Let them reap the benefit. Sorry to say. It's always gold. It's always gold. There might be a book. I wonder if it's based on a book. Let me see. Because even if we could get the book, that would be great. Can somebody
it looked like that was the only real thing that the actor Todd did again was played in this Star Child movie of 99.
Oh, I know why. Because it says that it's around the central conceit of the movie seems to center around a constellation that the characters are star children from stars, and they supposedly go to embody people on Earth. Yeah, this is like on Reddit, and it says, anyway, what in the hell is going on here? It's so funny. And I guess this is like the sequel where Wally and his mission companion are at BYU together. So Wally...
So it's a direct sequel with the same characters? Okay.
And focuses on romance plots rather than family relationship plots. It's also crap compared to Saturday's Warrior. It had no budget, terrible music, awful choreography, dumb characters. It was made in 1999, and it feels like somebody's cheap cash in. So that's what...
Could you imagine comparing something to Saturday's Warrior and being like, Saturday's Warrior was far superior in the choreography?
Good. That was like so much better. Oh, that's hilarious.
That sets the bar pretty low, to where if I do find it, I might actually enjoy it, because now I'm expecting it to just be like a home movie. I guess like the credits of the first.
And Mormons are mad. Mormons are mad on this Reddit. Saturday's Warrior takes tons of liberties with our doctrine.
It's too spicy. Yes, Saturday's Warrior is too spicy for some Mormons out there.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay, lady. I mean, yeah, they took some doctrine and kind of made it funner, but it's still the doctrine. Like, come on now. We know.
The 2016 version is way spicier than the 89 version, because they say the whole word abortion out loud multiple times. They imply it. They imply the concept of like a miscarriage with the kid. They have a joke that they're running out of space and they're going to have to kick another kid out to make way for the new one. And they're like going around the room, and they actually point to Pam at one point, and it's like, she dies later. I don't know if you guys know this, but you're joking about this. And she really is going to leave to make room for the new one to come in. The dad busts into Jimmy's room, and he's like, enough with this hippie crap. You know, you need to think for yourself. And Jimmy, to his credit, he's like, what about you, Dad? Have you ever questioned anything that the church has told you? And I felt like that was a pretty good response, and no one had anything to say for it, and Jimmy just storms out. But that is like, right? Can you be a Mormon and criticize your kid and say, think for yourself for once? You're just like setting yourself up for that one, aren't you?
They would not tell them to think for themselves, I don't think, because that leads into a whole rabbit hole. That did happen with my husband once, and he was like, okay, so Joseph Smith felt like he should go pray and think for himself and think about this, and so did I.
Oh no, we see where this is going. Not like that. Not like that.
Yep. And then they were like, oh, time out. You are not the prophet, young man. You are not the prophet.
Think for yourself, but like this.
Not like that.
Yeah. There's another really weird joke that happened in both movies that I didn't get, but it was so freaking specific that there must be a Mormon thing behind it. So in the first movie, a little the missionaries are in the park, the elders, and a little kid runs by with his parents, and he just snatches this kid up like a complete stranger. And he goes, hey kid, how old are you? And he goes, I'm 6. And he goes, get out of here. You're not 8.
Yep.
And then in the second movie, the same thing happens. He picks a little girl up out of nowhere and he's like, are you 8? And she goes, no, I'm only 7. And he's like, get out of here. So what is it about 8-year-olds?
Can't baptize under 8 years old. 8 years old is the age that the Mormons believe is the age of where you can accept your sin. Basically, where you're not innocent anymore until the age of 8. You are completely innocent to do any damn thing you do, because it's forgiven and you don't have the age of accountability yet. That is a real term. Age of accountability is 8 years old, and it is the first time you can be baptized is at 8 years old. So
if we assume that Saturday's Warrior, the scene in the park, is real, let's like step inside the movie, assume that this is kind of like a real reality. A Mormon grabs an 8-year-old kid that's with their parents. What's the next step? Do you just start converting the 8-year-old? Do you sell them on the Book of Mormon? Or wouldn't you have to sell the parents and then get the parents to baptize them? Or could you go and find an 8-year-old that has his own family and they're like Jewish, but you convert the 8-year-old?
You have to have parental permission for sure. So I think it was just a funny joke.
See, but you have to explain these jokes because I don't get the Mormon humor.
And the next steps wouldn't be like, let's talk about this a whole bunch right now. It would be like a slight introduction, and then they would set you up for the missionary discussions, and the missionaries would come to your home. So, or wherever you could eat them.
Hey, our church has cookies. Do you like cookies in church?
I like coffee in church. That blew my mind when I first went to a Christian church. I was like, wow, you get to have coffee here. Geez, scandalous.
It's kind of funny because that was a big thing is people before church would congregate around like the little coffee table, or they'd have like little pastry tables and stuff. Like that was always a church thing.
Yep, they do that in other churches. And I remember the first time I went to a Catholic church with my in-laws, because they're very Roman Catholic and they're Irish. They still hate me for converting their son. Imagine that, because they're mixed. They're literally Irish mix, like Mick, McDonald, McMillan, Mick, whatever. And his mom almost was a nun. She's still mad about it because I don't think he ever fully went back. But I remember going in there and being so holier than now and leaving in the middle of the ceremony crying because I knew the truth and this wasn't it. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. And my husband's like, oh my gosh, you're so dramatic right now. Like, what are you doing? You're embarrassing me. And now I look at that and I'm like, wow, I was a huge dick. And there is a shirt that says, I'm sorry for the things I said and did when I was a Mormon. And I think that's the funniest shirt ever. Yeah, I'm going to put that on my shirt thing. But it's just like, okay, yeah, I get it. Because you think like you have this knowledge, like these parents, like you've mentioned earlier in the show, and you really do feel far superior. And if you're a man and you have the priesthood, you're even, oh my gosh, you're so much more exalted. It
almost feels like we're so far beyond the time of like literal Puritans, like Salem witch trial style Puritans. But I guess that's the closest thing that comes to mind would be like a cross between Amish and Mormons to have that same level. And it's in a weird way, but it's
Jewish have it too. Like they do some superiority stuff, don't they? With
I guess so. It's a good point.
Maybe.
But it's more of like a chosen people thing, more than it almost feels like they're superior on a technicality, not just out of pure moral upstanding. Whereas,
but I'm talking about the Jewish people that have the ringlets.
The Orthodox?
Yes.
There's also this weird feeling of, and I guess this applies to Orthodox too, but like a Mormon person can offend you by how much they're offended by something you're doing. So it's like they won't even say anything bad about you, but just the way that they're just like, oh God, I need to get out of here. Like that's offensive because they're offended, right? It's a weird.
No, that's real. If you start talking theology like that, they will get up and leave. Like they can't be hearing all that. Or if it's really offensive, like me and my husband have to really be careful because some of the shit we say, and cuss words, by the way, at dinners. I mean, my kids have slipped multiple times. I think one of them even said the F word to his mom once. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, it's just, everybody knows. You just don't do that. Yeah.
Pushing the limits a little bit.
Yeah. You want to die. No, it was just like an accident because she says things off the cuff all the she's hilarious, by the way. But she just says funny jokes or off the cuff things that are funny to us, but not so much for the other people in the room. So I'm like, oh, please stop. But yeah, gotta rein it in.
There's one other song in both movies that I didn't get, and I don't know if there's like a Mormon thing, but it's called I've Got Daddy's Nose. And
that was so weird. I don't know
what they were. Does that have anything to do with Mormonism, or is that just a weird song they added?
I think that was just weird. I thought it was weird that they brought it back in the second one because it wasn't funny in the first one. I think it was just showing how cheesy they actually were. Like, oh, we're so innocent and delightful that we sing about noses. Okay.
Well, the first movie, it was an actual song, like the full dance production, everything. And in the second movie, the dad comes out and he's got like a fake nose and glasses on, and he's like, "Hey kids, what if we did a song called Everyone's Got My Daddy's Nose?" And everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's the dumbest idea ever. This is so stupid. We're not going to do that." And they do a very abbreviated version of it. So this is weird. This is in a really strange place where the second Saturday's Warrior from 2016 is both self-aware, but it's not self-aware enough to not keep doing the same cheesy stuff that's in the first one. So
it was super cheeseball. Like I don't know what they were doing with Daddy's Nose. That was weird. I thought the same thing when I was rewatching it. I'm like, was it this stupid the first time I saw it? Like, I certainly do not remember all of this ridiculousness, but apparently
it's really weird to have them repeat the same horrible jokes. Separated by like 2 decades, right? Like 20 years have gone by and no one came up with a better joke or a better scene for almost over half the movie. Like it's literally just beat for beat.
But they did get a Baptist choir in there, which was
they managed to get the Baptist choir in there. And they said the whole world abortion a few times in the song lyrics.
Yeah, no kidding on that one.
There's also
it's a weird show.
I was gonna say there's zero character development in any of this. Like Jimmy never really finds ultimate truth. He never has a spiritual moment and comes to God. The only thing that happens is that his sister dies and he feels bad and he goes back home. The end. Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's more leaning toward the prodigal son at the end. I feel like they're setting it up, but maybe they were setting it up for that weird sequel.
You mentioned prodigal son. So prodigal son, I know from the real Bible, not the fake Mormon Bible. Is it also in the Mormon Bible? Do Mormons read the Bible and cite the prodigal son? Do the Mormons have their own version of the prodigal son?
No, they believe in the Bible in as much as it's translated correctly. So they'll cherry pick the shit out of it. If it suits a narrative, they'll definitely use it. If you come to them and say, what about this verse about it says, if a prophet is ever wrong, even once, they don't want to hear that. No, because Joseph Smith was wrong a few times. And you cannot have the theology without him being 100% truthful and correct. So you can't go there. But you can.
What was he wrong about?
There was multiple predictions he was wrong about. I can't remember. There's a list. We could go over them. Remember we were going to
did he make specific claims like on April 14th this is going to happen?
Yep. Yeah.
Setting yourself up for failure. If you ever want to make prophetic claims, you always got to be vague. Don't give exact dates and times. You say things like when the moon is at its bluest. You say weird stuff like that.
I'll look them up. And then if you go there, failed prophecies of Joseph Smith, because I wrote down a whole bunch one time because we were gonna go over this, and they're not like earth shattering, but they're definitely there. Prophecy number 1, the coming of the Lord and when it was going to be. I think he named a time. Let's see. Prophecy was spoken in 1835 and it didn't come true. And then, so they redid it and kind of gave an excuse for that. And then it says, one about David W. Patton. They said he would settle up all his business and make a dispensation that he could go on a mission the next spring in the company with others, and 12, including himself. The prophecy was made in 1838 and he died in 1838 and couldn't go on a mission, obviously.
Hear me out, though. There could be another David W. Patton that they just didn't know about that did go on a mission.
For sure. Yeah. But definitely they didn't have the end of the world come. Congress to be broken
this is kind
up.
of a cool religion. It's like my religion contains a prophecy about the United States government being overthrown. I don't know.
Yep, that's fun. Yep.
I'm
well,
listening.
because they're
My ears are open.
finding treasure in Salem, Massachusetts, pestilence and earthquakes to destroy the wicked, which that one, I mean, I'll give it to him. Maybe it didn't happen yet, right? Temple to be
Or
built
someone
in
might have found the
Zion.
treasure. Like if you found the treasure, you're gonna go around telling people that you found the magic treasure from Salem. Because if you did that, Mormons are probably gonna be like, well, technically that's our treasure because Joseph Smith like prophesized it, so you can't just take it. I assume that's how that would work.
Right. Exactly. And it's kind of funny that they do this and they'll have an answer for everything. Just like what you're doing, they'll be like, well, maybe there was another whatever his name was.
I'm saying I would have been really good at being a Mormon, especially this angle.
Yeah.
Pestilence, hail, famine, earthquake, destroy the wicked. It's
I
like
mean,
on
that
the
one
timeline.
that one could happen. Yeah.
This is on God's timeline.
Yeah, it's not on a set timeline, but the one was, and he missed that one already.
Yeah, I think he might have. Maybe he learned his lesson. He was like, "Damn, I shouldn't have said next summer."
Yep. He should have waited, and that's the one. But it says if he's wrong even once, and then they'll say, "Well, that's just not trans." You know what? He wasn't speaking as the prophet that day, Thomas. He was speaking as a man that day, and he wasn't speaking as the prophet that day. So he could be wrong. And that's what
every other word was coming from the man, and then every other word after that was coming from the prophet, and you'd have to actually separate them and put them together to figure out.
Yeah, they do that with the King Follett speech. You need to look up the King Follett speech. It talks a lot about a whole bunch of things, including Kolob, and that is the one that they've also thrown out and said he was speaking as a man and not as a prophet. So there's a lot of issues around the King Follett disclosure. Yep.
April 7th, 1844, Joseph rose to speak in what would be his last conference. He explained that he would speak about the dead in response to requests from family and friends of King Follett, a church member who died in an accident. Oh my God, is he going to like summon the dead and speak to the dead? What is this?
It goes into cola. It goes into a whole big thing, and it was not well received. And then he died. So people were like, well, maybe he was just speaking as a man and da 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 da. And I think we have to put in King Follett speech and then maybe like, what's the word? Not conspiracy, but issues, I guess, with the King Follett speech. Issues with King Follett speech. And it goes on and on.
Well, it says, since 1844, the church has continued to teach the core doctrines Joseph presented in the King Follett Discourse and view the plan of salvation in light of the truths Joseph Smith taught about humankind's pre-mortal existence, mortal experience, and divine eternal potential.
They say it's not accepted as official doctrine, and this is the one that gets into Kolob, and they don't like to say that was theology. So they say no. They say it is not canon. They will not back it, and it is not part of scripture. So, I mean, obviously, it gets into sticky waters when you never know when they're the prophet or not, right? So now that's why they have conference bi-yearly. It's twice a year. They do a conference to the people, and it just barely happened in the spring and in like the fall time. Everybody stays home on that Sunday and watches TV, and it's hours long.
Saturday's Warrior.
It's not Saturday's Warrior, but it is awful. And you have to sit there and listen to the people address the church about the current issues of the church. And a lot of the times that will be when they address things like, don't get on the internet and search for little truths. Like this has been a problem or whatever's the problem at that time. They'll kind of tell people, or they'll say, you guys aren't being neighborly enough to your exmos. Go and get them back in the church. We need to really be. And you'll notice because everything will change. Like one day you don't exist in the neighborhood. And the next day everybody's like, sister so-and-so. I'm like, nope, I'm not your sister. Nope. Keep walking.
You can just tell that, it's like the new HR directive got passed, and now everyone's trying to like meet the quota.
I'm like, please don't come to my and it must have ramped up last year in the winter time because I had the missionaries come over and over, and finally I was just like, listen, I can't have you come in here all the time. Like you're trying to get in the house just by saying you got to use the restroom and stuff. You're making me feel bad. Like I let you in, then you're trying to talk to everybody about this book and I just don't want to hear it. Like I know all about it. And so now I'm just like, I'm an apostate. And you can't, it's not going to work. My husband likes to mess with them though. So they come back because he's like, they'll be like, oh, can we share a message from the Book of Mormon today? And he's like, can I share a message with you about the Bible? Because my husband likes to do that in real life. He hates it online, but he'll do it in real life. And I'm like, I'm completely the opposite. I'll do it online, but I hate it in real life. Because in real life, I got shit to do. And I'm like, no, you're not penciled into my book today. I am busy. So yeah, and it doesn't work. And they're just sweet people that honestly, they don't know what they're doing and they're just kids. I feel bad. Like I don't want to destroy them.
Yeah, my dad used to say some weird things to the Mormons. They would come to the door. I remember one time he always thought it was so funny, but it was kind of cringy. It was kind of like an internet mean girl cringe, but his favorite one was like, hold on real quick. I just need to go and beat my kid again a little bit. And like I don't know if they took it serious. Like they always knew that this
CPS
was
came.
them being no. Well, so this isn't like the 80s, 90s, so it wasn't like a CPS
so
kind of
funny.
situation. They didn't really. You guys didn't care at that point, and he wasn't actually beating me. It was just like a thing that he would say to like be silly about it.
So funny.
I wonder, could we put somebody's name on the Mormon list to make sure that the Mormons show up every? Like, if I just anonymously emailed the Mormon church and said, hey, you know, Jimmy at this address has been talking about wanting to join Mormonism, but he doesn't know anyone that's in Mormonism. I'm not a Mormon. I'm not interested, but Jimmy is. Here's his name. Here's his number. Here's his address.
That would probably work. And even better if they're an exmo, because then they have a record in the church and they know where you live and they can verify it. So
no, I just want to like start signing some of my problematic neighbors up to get weekly visits from Mormons.
You could probably do that. You could probably get that to work. Honestly, they'd probably be like, yeah, that's great. I mean, what's the worst? They're getting doors shut regardless. I mean, 3 people a year. I had no idea that it was like that kind of numbers. I guess when you grow up as a Mormon, you really think like how that Saturdays where you're like 5,000 talks and blah, blah, blah. You know, you're like, oh yeah, they're out there really doing this. And they're,
I mean, I would assume that you're aiming for like 1 every month or 2.
Yeah. Oh, I would think. I mean, I'm definitely know some overachievers that have done that.
Like in the business world, you've got like cost to acquisition, like how much it costs to get a customer, like the very first one. And usually you count on them to come back. So over time, it like balances itself out. But the cost to acquire a customer in Mormonism terms is like 5 digits, right? It's like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I had no idea. It was at that level, and it's decreased and it's continuing to decrease. So that's kind of funny to me in a way, but they really, really, really focus in on third world countries. And that bothers me on a lot of levels because they go and preach certain things that they know will resonate with people. A lot of times the main thing they'll say to you is, do you love your family? Yes. Do you want to be with them forever? Especially if they've lost children, lost parents, it really sticks in the heart, you know, like, oh yeah, I do want to, you know, I didn't know that was even possible. I thought they were dead and gone. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, well, guess what? We do baptisms for the dead and sealings for the dead. And you can be with them dead people forever and ever. And that's the whole thing. But they really concentrate on family stuff. And also, you know, a lot of Latin countries are very family focused anyway. I mean, honestly, it's like selling it to the crowd that's already ready to buy, you know, they're preaching to the choir. So yeah, kind of weird, but
even weirder when they come up with the white and delightsome parts.
Oh
they're like,
gosh.
hey, what's this part about? I'm like, oh, just skip over that line. That's fine.
They do. Trust me. They make sure they skip over all the parts until you're already baptized. And then you're like, wait a minute, your church was racist? What? And then like they try to hide all of the things. And I'm not saying they haven't rectified a lot of it. That's great. But not fundamentalists. Fundamentalist Mormons still are very racist, and they still go by the 1 drop rule, by the way.
Well, and the movie sort of implied some of this. And so the weirdest part about the movies was that they clearly, in my opinion, are not recruitment tools. These are like, you're already fully into the Mormon ways of thinking.
Yes.
If you're not, then there's really nothing in this movie for you. Why are you even watching it if you're not a Mormon?
Yeah. Why you're not a Saturday's warrior? What the hell would you know? That's why it's such a random title, because only a Mormon would know what that is, right? You're not going to know what that is if you're just a normal, like if somebody came up and asked 10 of your friends, do you know what a Saturday's warrior? They'd be like, party. Yeah, I know. I'm a warrior.
I mean, honestly, that's what I was thinking most of the time, that Saturday's warrior was him going out and like hanging with his buds in the denim jean jackets and stuff.
Yeah, you have no idea about like all of this end world, mighty and strong, blah, 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 all this weird shit I'm telling you. Like, you don't know the theology, so you wouldn't really probably click on that movie typically. You'd be like, skip it. Plus, it's a musical. Ew. Probably why they made it a musical, because most people are going to miss me with that one, especially if you don't know what it's about. Like, you're not going to sign up for that.
The end times prophecies are one of the quickest ways to lose me. And it's not even that like I'm against the fear porn angle. Like I like getting scared. I like watching horror movies. The thing that turns it off for me for all of like the end time stuff is if you just do a numbers check on how many people in history have predicted it, and guess what? Every single one of them has been wrong. Because as far as I know,
we're all here.
Right, we're still here, unless we missed the rapture by like a few generations. But in that case, right? If every single person has ever been wrong, like, you've got to have some balls on you to think you're the one that finally got the date prediction right. Out of that, like, not thousands of people, thousands of years that people have been predicting it, right? On record.
And now they don't do that. They just always say, oh, we should always be prepared.
I like, we're living in end times. I like that phrase because there's not a date on it. And like, sure, we're living in end times. The world's going to end in 50,000 years. Blink of an eye, right?
Yep. And they'll play that game now. They're smarter now. They've refined all of that. But also, like, are they even living true Mormonism anymore? Like I said, I talked to another ex-polygamist, just barely. That show's not out yet. And he even described how like their Book of Mormon is very different from the Book of Mormon with the mainstream church. And the Book of Mormon for the mainstream church admits it's been edited and revised 4,000 revisions, but they like to say, oh, they were just like theys and thous and this and that. No, they weren't. There's theology that's taken out. So
is there a name for like the most OG original Joseph Smith Bible?
There is a name for everything they don't like, and I'll tell you what that is, called the Journal of Discourses. The Journal of Discourses is something that they take away any speech, any non-theology, anything they don't like, they stick in the Journal of Discourses. And they say that just isn't true. We looked into it. We prayed to God again. This is going. This is in the out. And so they definitely, they have many volumes, many volumes of the Journal.
They've even disavowed the Journal of Discourses in a way, because the very first sentence says, the Journal of Discourses is not an official publication of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. It's just a compilation of sermons and other materials from the early church, blah, 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 blah. So they're just like, hey, we didn't write it. Here it is. We didn't write this.
We didn't do it. We can't get rid of it. We don't know what to do with it. But we also don't want to throw it away, because what if we're wrong? What if it comes back? We don't know what to do. Like the black prophecy stuff is in here, like not giving the priesthood to the black people and blah, blah, blah. All this stuff is in these.
We'll show them that after they get baptized. Then they can learn about that.
Yeah. That's don't worry about the small stuff. You're going to be with your family forever. Even if you're a servant, it's fine. You're not white and delightsome. You can be a servant and not have the priesthood. Whatever. Well,
to no surprise of myself, at least, Book of Mormon, the musical, is so much superior to Saturday's Warrior. It's not even worth saying out loud, but it truly is. Like, Saturday's Warrior turned me off of Mormonism than anything that you've said to me so far, Heidi, about Mormonism. Like all the magic and the polygamy and the abuse. Like, I would rather that exist in the world than another version of Saturday's Warrior.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Don't remake it again. But I do want to see the Star Child because the fact that it's not available has me really curious what the hell's in it.
We'll
I
find
think we
it.
should
It'll
follow
pop up on one of those sites. And I mean, you're in freaking Salt Lake City. So if
I
anyone
know.
can find it
I'm
on
gonna go
OfferUp
look.
or like a garage sale, I would assume that you
Mhm.
could find it easier than I could.
Definitely. I'll be
So
looking.
be on the lookout. Post it in all your Exmo chats. Does anyone have
Yes.
this Star Child 99?
I
It's only
wonder if
on
my friend
VHS.
does. I'm gonna ask my couple of my friends that are
You've
Exmos
got to
too.
have it. You have to know at least a few people that have seen it, let alone maybe have a copy of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through these Reddit threads because I had no idea that it was. I knew we talked about it being a movie, but I didn't know it was a direct extension of Saturday's Warrior, which is funny to me.
And then hear me
So-
out too. What if there was a Saturday's Warrior, but it took the approach of Warren Jeff's clan, and it was like the Warren Jeff Saturday Warrior?
I mean, they probably believe in it too. They probably definitely believe in all of that. They believe they're better Mormons than Mormons. They are far superior Mormons. And not just Warren Jeff's clan. There's many called the Work. The guy I talked to was from the Work. He had a different one, but they have the real Book of Mormon, and they go by the letter of the law.
Well,
And
they're
they
not sponsors. Only Warren Jeff's is. So Warren Jeff's
Yeah.
is going to be the superior Mormonism, unfortunately, at least on this show.
Yeah, on this show for sure. I mean, we've got that in. I mean, my brother-in-law is his nephew, so.
I'm working on it. I'm working my way into the family somehow.
Yeah, just marry one of the millions of wives. Like, what are you doing? Get on that. Just like they married William Morgan's, just like Joseph married William Morgan.
Don't you remember me from pre-existence? It's me.
Yeah.
How do you not remember me?
Did you not watch Saturday's Warrior?
Emily? Is that you, Emily?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I bet that would work on a Mormon girl, to be honest, which is sad. Oh,
if I were to go to Salt Lake City and was like trying to hit on some random Mormon girl, okay, when I go and I'm just like randomly hitting on some Mormon girl, could I just sing like the "I'm So Humble" song or the Saturday's Warrior song? Would that have any sway, or would they not even know what I was doing?
I think most of them wouldn't know until you made context, but some that are really devout, they just might.
So this isn't something cool with the kids. I'm assuming the 2016 one didn't catch fire.
I don't think so. No, I haven't heard much about it, and not like it did when it first came out in the 80s, man. That was a thing. Like, you were a Saturday's Warrior. Like, we all knew we were the ones. It's up to us. And yeah. Okay. We're all
that is kind of an awesome little challenge that the church put for the teens of the 80s and 90s, right? Like, you guys are our last resort.
On your shoulders. Yep. And here's a whole nother generation, and all of us are middle-aged. So that was wrong. Big fail. That's why they had to remake
failed prophecies.
Whoops. We'll make another version. We'll do it again.
Right. Do we have any ideas for what the next episode's going to be about yet?
I think we have multiple ones on the table. Number one, we still got to do the mobsters in Vegas and Mormons.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that one.
Yeah, we got to do that one. And also, I have been finding out some fun little treasures about the CIA and Mormons and aliens. And I'm going to see if my friend Tim Constantine will come on and talk with us. Because
I'm game for all that.
Yeah. And he wants to do a show with you anyway, and he's great. So you should he's the one, you'll meet him when we do the alchemy thing. When we do it on that show in July, you'll meet Tim, and that might come up. So
okay, I'm in. I like all the more Mormon content, the better. And I'm doing another.
We'll never run out. We'll never. It's a plethora.
I'm glad to hear that. Because I need something to sell me back on Mormonism after 4 hours of Mormon music.
How about the mob? Yeah, the mob's
the mob is a good way to counteract that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and you should look up the sketchy history of Ogden and the Madams, and they were even on Ghost Adventures. Pretty interesting, but I'm pretty sure the Mormons were involved in that some way. So we'll see what's up there.
Okay, well, we got plenty lined up. Vegas, Mormons, ghosts, mobsters. It's all on the table.
Aliens,
plus more.
aliens, CIA. And do not forget about Vallow. Lori Vallow case has been decided. So now I'm not afraid of getting sued anymore. And it has this huge connection, and it would be a 2-hour show that is bananas, but it connects to everything. They've been found guilty of killing their kids because they were NPC zombies that didn't have souls anymore. So Mormon theology, the book, the work, and the glory. So yeah.
This sounds like a way better version of Saturday's Warrior. They're just out killing NPCs.
Yeah, she just barely got sentenced to death, or he did, and I don't know if she got death. I think she just got life. But yeah, weird stuff, because their number in gematria got so low that they were no longer considered alive. So they died. They said they didn't kill them. They just died. They were little kids. Yeah.
It's all in the numbers.
It's something. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave on a high note. What else you got going on? Anything else you want to promote?
Yes. We do a lot on my Patreon about that case. Exmo Joe and I go hard in the paint on the Ex-Mormon stuff. He is an atheist. He is at completely the other end of the line of the spectrum than I am. And it's kind of makes for a good talk about all this stuff. And he is obsessed with Tim Ballard, Vallow, all that stuff. So
between you and him, who's right about God?
I mean, I definitely think I am, but he definitely thinks he is. Right. He runs the Hellfire Agency. So that tells you. To join his Patreon is $6.66 per month. I am only over on the Christian end where it doesn't cost that. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
3 and 7, the Holy Trinity and the number of God. So if you're a true Christ-fearing American, there's no problems joining the Paranoid American Patreon, and you should.
Yes, definitely should. So that's been fun. And I'm always guesting on lots of different shows just because I think it's fun. So my regular show is, as always, twice a week, and we're getting ready to drop again. We're doing a Crowley deep dive right now. So including the Golden Dawn and different things about Crowley, LaVey. It's the Beast series. So that's up right now for your enjoyment. Heidi Love at the Unfiltered Rise.
And I'll just play a nice little commercial for NASA Comic and some other stuff. Go ahead and join the damn Patreon. You'll get your name in the credits at the very end for eternity, and also everlasting salvation, forgiveness, and you'll meet all your sky babies.
There you go. Sky babies.
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit nasacomic.com.
NASAcomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm NASAcomic.com, go visit NASAcomic.com. Go visit NASAcomic.com. CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm NASAcomic.com, go visit NASAcomic.com. Go visit NASAcomic.com. Yeah, go visit NASAcomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions.
Yeah, go visit NASAcomic.com.
This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
Paranoid. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain, give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real, you will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they ought to to shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Executioner flame you out, nuclear bomb. Distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits. So thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.